We have 23 people watching right now, and I'm glad you guys tuned in since it was a last minute decision to go live. And let me know if I'm loud enough because I'm in my bedroom with my leg pushed up against myself and I'm really uncomfortable. And I'm shaky. Everything's shaky. But we should be live, and I will bring Jessica in a second. If you guys have any questions, use the link that I put out. I'll give you the link one more time. But if just be nice, don't be rude. Whatever questions you're going to ask, we'll do the Hal Puthoff paper, which I haven't read yet. But if you have other questions about anything, feel free to. You can ask them in the chat, or you can jump on with your audio. Good, sound is good. I'm going to bring Jessica on. I've never had a co-host like this, but first time for everything. And she is unmuted. You have to unmute yourself.
Unmuted.
There you go. Welcome
Hello,
to my
Joe.
show. This is it.
Happy
this is
to
my
be
studio.
here.
Yeah,
Let's do it.
I'm glad you were here. We talked about doing this for a while, so no time better than now. Just tell people who you are and a little bit about yourself.
Oh, really? You didn't tell me I was going to have to explain myself.
Real basic. I mean, I'm not interviewing you, but
I'm Jessica. People know me as Who is Axelrod or Go Kick Rocks on Twitter, and kind of just been part of the community for a while. I jump in when I feel like it. I don't really do a lot of podcasts or shows with people, except for recently. It seems like I have in the past couple of weeks, but that's about it. Nothing really special.
what do you remember about our first interaction on Twitter?
You were such an asshole, man.
By the way, she's not kidding because I've seen old tweets that she pulled up. Hi, alien girl. She pulled up old tweets, and I was like, "Oh my god, I said that to you? Oh my god, it's really embarrassing." I mean, I've called her clueless. I think that was the worst. And you're like, "Oh, it's not that bad," but for me, it's bad.
Even your first account that has been deleted, it was suspended or whatever happened with that. How you and I have been arguing for years.
Look, this. The guy says Jess, but somebody said when you called me an asshole, they said
Hi, Luda.
she isn't wrong. See? Oh, I guarantee you, if you read what I said to her in the past. Sorry. So even in my first account, I was mean to you?
Oh, yeah. See, but that's fine. You and I can disagree all day long. We can go at it but you've never been at the level of hate and trolling that I have received the past couple of weeks. You and I always disagreed, but we did it, respectfully. We were snarky to each other. Like we said some shit to get it under each other's skins, but that's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Well, you said that we were respectful, but there were a few times that I was not, which I have apologized for, which is embarrassing.
You call me clueless. I call you an asshat. It's a back and forth. It's okay. But I mean, that's fine. Like we weren't like trying to tear each other apart.
This is true. Folks, if you guys have any questions about anything going on in the past couple of days, past couple of weeks, let me know. Otherwise, I'll go to the Hal Puthoff paper and I'll read it, which I have not read. Have you read it, Jessica?
I have not. I've been really, really busy today. So I just got it a couple of hours ago and I haven't had a chance yet. So I'm looking forward to that.
Me too. We got a question already. Is Jessica a UFO researcher? By the way, before you answer that, you forgot to tell us, how many years did you lead the Taliban?
Dude, I'm still leading the Taliban.
By the way, for folks who don't know that,
that's fucked up.
The whole Morin Lerner thing, he had tweeted something about the Tic Tac being a hypersonic missile, which I thought it was ridiculous, right? I said so. But then Richard Butts, who allegedly has a clearance, and I like Richard, but he was so offended by what Jessica had said. She said, "Oh, this is interesting," and he said,
"I just wanted people to discuss it. I didn't even say, hey, I promote this. I just said, let's talk about it."
I didn't agree with it. I thought it was a waste of time, but I thought the overreaction was too much. And the guys and Richard said that, when did you lead the Taliban? I'm just asking questions. It was just over the top. And I know what he was trying to do. He was trying to say hypersonic missile theory is ridiculous. Well, here's another thing that's ridiculous, but it was in another universe ridiculous, and it was so over the top. But we don't have to talk about that unless people bring up specifics about the last couple of days or any questions. Somebody said Taliban. No, Taliban. And I made a djinn joke because you do know about the djinn, which is going to come up in the Hal Puthoff paper, which I was really surprised to see. In the first line, he mentions the djinn. We do have Ludicrous. Let's just bring somebody in right now because I usually don't have people write in, and I disagree with him a lot. Let's bring him in.
I like Luda.
Man. How y'all doing?
All right. I think we spoke on the spaces the other day too, right?
Yeah, we did. We did.
I
just want to show my face also so people don't start accusing me of being Morin or anything like that.
What's up, man? It's
Rick
nice
Moranis.
to see you.
Good to see you too.
Face.
Yeah. I'm a real person. Yeah. So yeah, we do disagree on Twitter, but I think we agree a lot more speaking. You know what I mean? I think that the context and nuance gets lost in text-only conversations.
100%.
If that makes sense, because I enjoy all of your YouTubes, I enjoy your blog. So we just disagree on a few things other than that, but I mean, I highly respect your work. So I think you do a great job. So
I appreciate
that just goes to show that people can disagree and maybe take cheap shots here and there, which I should work on because I can be a bit of a dick sometimes on
Same here.
Twitter. So yeah, so it's but it's nice to be able to talk to you, and Jess, I like Jess, and I was just going to speak on the plasma thing and like my Morin learner situation. I met him after Campbell put that paper out. It's when it seemed like that it all really ratcheted up. So I didn't know who he was before. Started kind of following him because he was talking about plasma. Started a group. I've been in that group for maybe 2 weeks. I don't even know if it's that old yet. And
that was a plasma group.
Yeah, and that's when all the drama started coming. So it's the plasma group's still there. Morin is not in it. He's deactivated his account or whatever. So we've kept it going. A few people have left, but still posting cited papers and stuff like that. So. But that's my experience with him. Yeah, everything that I interacted with him was about sourced papers, experiments, things like that. Basically, things you can find off Google if you knew what to look for or search for, basically. So,
well, I'll tell you, I have opinions on that I expressed on Twitter. We don't have to talk about unless people have specific. Yeah, people are taking shots already, but which I'm going to ignore. But if anybody has specific questions, that's fine. But the one good thing about the past couple of days, there are people that I have not interacted with because I disagreed with them so much. But because of this, we're now following each other and DMing each other, and it's pretty amazing. And I said I think something good will come from this, and that's something good, And I know we're never going to all get along. It's just not going to happen, but more of us can get along, which is good.
I think one of the first steps with bringing both sides together, I mean, of course, there's going to be this fighting that we're seeing right now. Everybody's going to push back against each other. But I think once we start getting out of our echo chamber and start talking with people who we disagree with more, we'll be able to learn more, share more. I know there are a lot of things on the experiencer side that I've learned, as well as the technology side. I think it's great to look at it from all angles. I know it's hard to do that because we're so tribalistic, but that's my hopes. And I hope that people can stop fighting so damn much. And like you two talking, like, it's great.
Yeah, because we do battle. Don't ask me what we battle about. Just like I don't remember what you and I battle about when we first battled. You asked me, I'm like, you think I remember? I don't retain that stuff. It's hard enough to retain everything since 2017 and before that. But then I was going to say about about technology. I mean, you asked me, you said, what happens if this all turned out to be our technology? And I said, I don't think that's the case. But as I said on Twitter the other day, if we do have this tech and a lot of it is ours, I'll be thrilled that we were able to create or maybe crack gravity. I would be happy about that. That would be even bigger than if ET was here, because we would change our world and our environment overnight. So I don't think that's the case. I mean, I give it a little possibility, but there's too many things that have gone on in the old days which make me think, you know, in my opinion, yes, something, and you've agreed with this too, something anomalous is here. Do you agree with that, Ludicrous? Something, there's a percentage of what we're seeing is anomalous?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Definitely
And
100%.
I think the more that you talk to these people who are labeled as skeptics or whatever, I don't think I've ever met a skeptic who doesn't believe that there's something anomalous here. I
would say Mick
see
West
them.
is not a
Well,
skeptic. He's a bunker, but he would not say that. He would say maybe.
well,
I don't,
Mick
I'm
West,
beyond
I mean, he
maybe.
gets a lot of attention. He's not the entire community. There are a lot of
No.
people who I talk to on a daily basis who they're open to other things. They're open
Right.
to the paranormal. Some people are skeptical, but they're only skeptical on one side of it. Like they're skeptical of, you know, this current what's going on within the government right now. And one thing I would like to say about you is, you know, like I said earlier, when I first met you, I thought, oh, this guy's an asshole. But then I started looking at your work. I went to your website. I saw everything that you had done. And I actually pulled research from your own website and to use in arguments that you and I had back and forth.
Did
So
you
that's
saw?
when I was like, okay, well, maybe I need to give him a little bit more room to prove himself. And I need to not kind of prejudge you. I think everybody prejudges everybody. I think that's what's wrong with the community. Everybody like tag teams and just picks a corner.
No, 100%. It's social media. It's really bad. As Ludacris said, it's like when you see somebody face to face, I am much more calm on, and I told you I have a Twitter persona. I don't do that on purpose though. That's just how it is when you're not face to face. When you're face to face like this, I mean, and people will ask me in these things about whether it's John Greenwald or Stephen Greenstreet, I react totally different. I still disagree about stuff, but I don't attack for whatever reason. Maybe I should just be on YouTube and forget Twitter, but I love Twitter, so that's not going to happen.
Yeah, I think also though is some of it. I know some of our interactions is where I get like a snarky or a smart ass remark is usually one that's warranted because I feel like sometimes I will go into a thread with a stick and try to poke the hornet's nest a little bit, and I've been working on not doing that. And it's
I do it too. Jess
yeah,
does
well, and part of it is frustration. Like I like when I was watching Goof on and following him and stuff. That was when I had just came out of my Bob Lazar and like they were lying, you know, and there's proof that there's lying and but I'm not going to go down that road. But it was a letdown, and it was a letdown after letdown after letdown. It was followed up with like the Linda Moulton Howe Antarctica stuff. You know, I bought all these documentaries. I believe all these people, and then I find out that a lot of them are scammers. You know, some of them aren't. Some of them used to do really good work. Maybe something's changed. I don't know. It just it jaded me for a while. So I took a little bit of a setback and realized that I can be a bit of a closed-minded prick on Twitter. So because there's no way that I can say, no, you didn't see that. That experience didn't happen to you.
Right.
You know, I can't say that. And for a while, I thought I could. And you know, since then, I've taken some steps back and riled my frustration and whatnot kind of back under control. But I'll still take some shots here and there. But it's not. I try to be more open-minded and listen more and be more respectful in my disagreeing.
I will
So
too. So will Jessica. And so will Danny Bedtime Silva, who is not visible right now. And hopefully he's not getting his pajamas on right now.
I'm not showing myself. I'm not wearing a shirt. I'm shirtless. No one wants this.
So what's going on, Danny? It's been a long time since we've been on a feed together.
Yeah. I don't know, man. Not much. I'm glad to see this love fest going on between everyone being happy and coming together for the subject or something like that, right?
Yeah, it'll last for an hour, and then when we go back to Twitter, we'll hate each other again. But no, that won't. Things are getting better, but it's always going to be contentious because it's the most important story in the history of the planet. If we're dealing with something non-human that's interacting with us and maybe manipulating us, I mean, yes, we're all passionate about it. If there's some disinformation being mixed in, we're passionate about that too. So, and if we have technology, we're passionate about that. So, yeah, it's but it's been like this for a long time, and it's not just ufology. People, if you go to other Twitter, if you go to other Twitter subjects like college football or something like that, it's just as bad. It can be worse. I mean, I had threats of physical violence because I talked about one specific football player. You know, I said this person, I believe he got away with rape. And that's when my alleged, you know, that's when I got violence threats against me. So it's just as bad elsewhere. It's not just here.
And that's, you know, we're all basically a bunch of Stephen A. Smiths. And if someone doesn't know who that is, he's a sports commentator. And we're all kind of just like sports commentators, dropping hot takes, sharing our opinions. And when you share your opinion, it gives people the chance to either disagree with it or agree with it. So that's why there's so much disagreeing and agreeing and debate, because we're all just sharing our opinions, putting ourselves out there. And just like you were talking about the sports world, even though, you know, the crime in the sports world is a little bit different, but, you know, we're all just basically sports commentators, kind of from the outside looking in. You know, I wouldn't really consider any of ourselves players, like, you know, like in the NBA. We're more like just commentators, and I don't know. So I just came to that epiphany where we're basically just talking over here. We're sharing opinions, and when you share your opinions, it gives people reason to either agree with you and hate you over it, or debate you, or respect you, or whatever it is. It's what we do.
Yeah, it's I'm the water boy. I'm not even a coach. I am the water boy. And somebody, Vancouver guy, says the longer you're in this field, the more skeptical you become. Usually, because it definitely does not fit me. Most of the oldest veteran researchers that have been around since the early days are very skeptical people. So my question for you guys would be, and I've talked about this recently, you know, I think there's something anomalous. I think there are videos that are amazing, but I haven't seen them. When is the cutoff point for when we get to see just one video making a 90-degree turn and starting and stopping on a dime? I mean, I said next Christmas, 2023 of Christmas. Obviously, that's not really a cutoff point, but you know, there's so much going on with Congress, so that's really good. But eventually, we need to see some of this evidence. What do you guys think? Danny, start out.
It's the same as what we were talking about on Vinny's show the other day, and it's like, obviously, in my opinion, of course, I shouldn't say obviously, in my opinion, Lou and other people, they tease this stuff because they want to put pressure on whoever's keeping it. This is just my opinion. I'm guessing here, but maybe it's to get us riled up, get us demanding it, leak it that it exists, and maybe put pressure on them. I don't know. Or maybe it was a slip of the tongue, and he should never have mentioned the 23-minute video or whatever it is. But, you know, Ryan, post-disclosure, UFO Jesus was, you know, showing his frustration the other day on Vinny's show. And I agree with him, too. It's like, we hear about this stuff, and we just want to freaking see it already. And it's hard, man. It's hard. Unlike the sports world, since I'm making the sports analogies, they get to play the big game once a year and get that release, right? But it's like we don't necessarily ever have that release. We're waiting for the Super Bowl to happen, and it's like never happened. I don't know. I'm just making analogies. Maybe they don't make sense, but you guys know what I mean here. It's like we don't
make sense.
Yeah, we don't get like the end of the season and then the off season and all this kind of thing. It's like we're just on this same trajectory, and it is incredibly frustrating. And we want this evidence, and we want this stuff to happen. I don't know. At the same time, we get the great progress, and so we get to get the lead up of it.
No, that makes sense.
I will say that, Danny, I've followed you for like 5 years now. You're one of the people that, one of the very few people that I don't think I've ever publicly disagreed with. Of course, I see some of your opinions and I'm like, okay, well, you know, I'll take that. I don't necessarily agree, but I'm not going to push against you because everybody's entitled to their opinion. But the thing that I respect most about you is that you are one of the first guys after 2017 that come into this field, and you don't shy away from hard questions, man. You push people. I've seen it. I've seen you on podcasts. I've seen you in spaces. I've seen you on Twitter. You don't shy away. You respectfully ask questions. And I would encourage everybody to do that, regardless of what side you're on. So I just wish everybody could be as calm and as cool. And I know that even you and Joe have gone at it and disagreed. But, I get a kick out of both of you
I
guys.
have my times, and I go through phases of my personalities and stuff. And I don't know. I think I've been arguing less this last year just because I've been going through it personally and professionally, as I've been tweeting about recently. But I don't know. Sometimes I do want to argue about stuff, and sometimes I'm more like what Ryan was saying on Vinny's show, where it's just like we're debating minutia. At the end of the day, I don't know. I go through a lot of different emotions, man, and
We all do. It's a very emotional topic and very personal for a lot of us.
Yeah.
Like, we're in this for life, most people, because we have something to prove to ourselves. Like, we have questions that we want, fundamental questions of our reality that we want answered.
Yeah.
Well,
And
yeah.
I'm not as enthralled by every little detail as I was in years past, and that's why I don't write as much. I did write up or just basically I just shared on my website the How Puthoff paper, because that's a huge thing. We've been waiting for it for years and years. That's crazy. But
Yeah, I'm waiting for it.
I haven't been writing like every little detail because it's just not as exciting to me as it used to be, unfortunately. And but also we have a lot more people involved now, and Lou and all these other guys also speak for themselves. Back in the day, we were going 2 years at a time, a year at a time, where we'd get like one Lou interview. It would be with George Knapp, or he wouldn't even be talking. And I guess that was because of his work with Till the Stars Academy. So at that point, I was like, we had to dig for info. But now we have all these interviews from guys like Lou, Gary Nolan. Mellon's been pretty quiet. But a lot of these guys are speaking for themselves more. Jim Semivan's even talking now. He never used to talk. So it's like I feel like I don't have to play that role as much as I used to.
And the one thing, and I'll bring in Ludacris in 1 second. The one thing about Danny, when I would listen to his interviews, I would always get worked up. I couldn't help myself. I'd be raising my voice, and then I'd listen to myself back, and I'm like, "What the hell are you doing?" And then I listen to Danny. He's like, "Yeah," and then like that, and he's just
See, that's when I'm sitting here rooting him on, like, go Danny.
Thank you.
Ludacris, jump in there.
Yeah, I think I was at one time maybe one of the only people blocked by Danny. We got into it. I couldn't even tell you what it was over, but I know that I was straw manning some argument like Danny shouldn't be taken
you mean like a month or two ago?
Yeah, no, it might have been longer than that. I can't remember, but yeah, it was a while. But I remember saying to somebody, "Danny Silva blocked me," like as a joke, like, and he's like, "Damn, what'd you do?" I was like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "He doesn't block anybody. You must have said some fucked up shit. Sorry for the language, some messed up stuff." And I was like, it made me reflect. I was like, did I? I think we were just arguing. Maybe I was just being a complete jerk, And then one day, Danny had me unblocked. I just randomly ran across, and I was like, sweet. So I want to apologize for that, Danny. If you remember more what it was, I'm sure it was me being
it's
a
all
jerk.
good. It doesn't matter.
But I do
man.
appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Yeah, I enjoy your stuff
Thank
you're
you.
doing now. I enjoy your take. I was way too critical during that time period, and like I said, I was at a frustrated part where I felt like I'd come to a head, and things weren't going anywhere, and the people that I looked up to, things were coming out, that exposed things that they weren't as credible as what they said, things like that. But for me to say equate that there's no phenomenon because I was lied, because I looked into things or believed people more than I should have, it was a fault on my part. That doesn't change the fact that things are going on and there's unexplained things that are happening all the time. So
and I see that happen with people. I've seen that happen where they were into the phenomenon, they were obsessed by it, and then they got frustrated and they became debunkers, not just skeptics. They became debunkers. So that happens. So give yourself credit for you not going totally down that road and realizing that just because there's shenanigans and grifters and all that stuff, it doesn't mean there's not something here. So yeah,
right.
But I'm going to let you go.
I went pretty far. I went pretty far listening to goof on and stuff like that, which I regret.
That is pretty far.
It
And I
is, and I
felt
can
burnt
admit that.
about stuff.
So,
I've definitely felt burnt
know.
by people, and we put all these people on pedestals, and for good or bad, probably we shouldn't. But not all of them are on the same page all the time either. And they argue and debate too. They just don't do it on social media. They do it on emails or in person. And it's hard when you put your faith in someone, and even if you don't get fully burnt, but you just see like them changing their mind about something. Me and Joe go through this a lot because we put so much weight on sources, and we see our sources we respect. Sometimes they change their mind, and they're allowed to change their mind, but it's hard because it's like, you told me this, and it was like, I took that to the bank when you told me that, man, and now you're changing your mind, or I'm hearing something else, and it's just crazy. But we've seen that from TTSA kind of breaking up and all this other kind of thing, and I don't know. So I feel you, and I'm skeptical about certain people and certain things, or I just have to take it with a grain of salt more so. I don't always talk about it publicly, but I don't know. I feel you, and it is crazy that some of the biggest pro guys kind of like turn to the dark side. They have their reasons though to do it. I mean, look at our best friend Stephen Greenstreet. I mean, he was like this main believer guy, and now he's like Darth Vader or something. But I think he's actually pretty hilarious.
Right.
So.
Yeah,
But,
he is. I think he hit the same wall I did, maybe at different timing.
Yeah,
and
feel
I
like
think
you get
everyone
burnt.
reacts it different. Like, instead of taking the off ramp, like I'm done with it, like I wanted to keep going because I thought, what if I'm wrong? Because I want it. I've seen some orbs, I've seen some weird stuff, and to just say that what I saw was military or what have you, that
Joe,
doesn't
I've
you
hit
never
you
told
seen
right.
me
anything. I'm kind of
So,
coming from a different place, so I've never seen anything at all.
right.
Joe told me that
That's
right now is probably the best time for everybody to come together, and hopefully all out of all of this fighting that's been going on, hopefully it unites people, because I have seen more open minds on the skeptical side and the believer side. I think that we are both in the same place. We are both wanting the same answers, and maybe that's what's lacking. Maybe that's what's been lacking from the beginning. Maybe we need to end this tribalism and all actually come together as a community. I know that's going to be hard because I know everybody hates each other's guts, but maybe it's time to mend some of those fences and work together.
Yeah, I
Oh, I
mean,
agree. And
I think
I'll
yeah,
jump off
more
here.
events
I'll
like
jump
this.
off here, but thank you so much for letting me jump on and share, Joe.
Thanks
I
for
do
coming
highly
on.
respect your work, man, and appreciate you letting me come on and voice my piece. And I look forward to seeing you on Twitter. And I'm going to listen, catch the rest of this show here and listen.
Thanks for being here. Anytime. I'm also gonna bring somebody back on. Somebody, are you there? That dude?
I saw
You're
John Music in the chat. He's a good buddy and he's a good voice. I'd like to hear him more if he wanted to jump in. But
there's somebody new that just jumped in on. Let me just say, Joe 5D. Is that comic Joe 5D? I'm not sure. But anyway, he says, stop waiting for the government for answers. And I always say, I'm not waiting for the government for answers. I mean, I don't know if on our own we're gonna figure out anything. I mean, you could talk about new age metaphysical stuff, meditation and that kind of stuff. But as far as government, I just want their data. I don't want answers. I just want their data, and let the best scientists, philosophers, and all the experts of the world look at the best data. That's really what I want from the government.
And I'll give Joe my rebuttal I give everyone that I've been saying for years and years. We don't need the government. We're in the UFO community. The public is the one that needs the government. We're trying to get the public on board, and they don't believe us. They only believe the government. It sucks, but that's where we're at. And
well, they
in
don't
a lot
believe
of
us
ways,
because we're constantly fighting. They're like, "What the hell are these crazy people talking about?"
I don't think so.
It's so hard to understand it.
I don't think so. My family and friends don't know anything about UFO Twitter, so their non-belief really has nothing to do with that. From what I can see, they're just not interested. And like, so and so is sick. So and so is dealing with this. Sorry, so and so is dealing with not paying a bill, not being able to pay the rent, and it's just. And I've said this before, and it's definitely conspiracy based. I'm like, is that the way the system is? People cannot even worry about this stuff. They're so concerned about rent and gas and all that stuff. They can't even look into this stuff. They don't have time for this.
that's what it is, unfortunately. And they're just not going to believe us. They're not going to believe anyone. They may not even believe the president in 2022, but they need like these greater authorities to tell them what's going on, or they're just not going to care. And That's why us fighting for the media and fighting for the government transparency is to get the rest of the people on board. And maybe we're stupid for caring. I don't know, but we care what other people think. So, but not everyone does. I do, because I'm trying to get the public on board. But
No, I'm the same way. That dude, are you there?
Yeah, hey, thanks for having me on, Joe.
No problem. Thanks for coming on. It's nice to have people come on.
Yeah, no, I agree with you guys, though. The thing with the public, though, is no one's really going to accept this until it's blasted across all aspects of media. So it's like CNN, Fox News, MSNBC are doing a week-long coverage of it. You got The View talking about it. You have it trending on Twitter. It's got to get everyone, and it can't just be for one day. It has to be repeated, just because our attention spans are so short. Just like you were saying, Joe, people have so many things in their personal lives going on, not to mention just the constant update of a news cycle. Our memories are so short, we can't even remember what the hot topic was 3 months ago.
No, 100%. I mean, the attention span is such an issue. It's nothing. I mean, and it's like I did a 3-hour show with Michael Vai last week. By the way, somebody asked me if you're watching. I'm going to do a show with Michael Vai. We're going to deal with Unconventional Objects, the book by Paul Hill, who worked for NASA. Actually figured out how to see UFOs and where they line up, where they show up. But yeah, it's a problem. I do a 3-hour video on YouTube. Nowadays, kids they don't want to watch a 3-hour video. I need to do a better job of pulling clips from that, because people have a couple of minute attention span. So we're not going to be able to overcome that unless, like you said, something comes out that's just undeniable, and then the news media just takes off. And once the news media does take off, if there's enough evidence to show there's something anomalous here, it's going to be nonstop. It's going to be every day, all day. I would think some of us will be in demand because we've been at it for so long. They'll want our take. It's going to be crazy. I don't think we're ready for it.
Next up, TikTok, Joe. You want a short attention span? That's where you got to go.
Yep. That's going to be the future. Kind of the UFO stars or media personalities are going to come from TikTok. Whoever can condense it down into 10, 15 seconds.
I agree. Anything else on your mind?
No, I'm surprised you even called me on here, just because, I'm a spectator to UFO Twitter. So, I don't know. It's pretty interesting seeing all the personal spats going on, so much of the drama that I have no idea what you guys are even talking about. I don't even know who this Moran guy is. And I don't know. It's just interesting trying to learn more about the interpersonal workings that are going on behind the scene, because that's also leading me down rabbit holes and figuring out what's going on. But no, I mean, I kind of listened to who you just had on, Lucid.
Ludicrous.
Yeah, Ludicrous. I kind of went down the same pathway of him. I was down the Bob Lazar thing for a while. Then I got sucked into the hollow Earth theory and Antarctica bases. And I did my research and have my opinions, and either decide on some things like, no, that's just total crackpot, or yeah, maybe something's going on. But I didn't take any of it personal. I didn't feel cheated or hurt or upset by it. I was just, oh, okay, just, if anything, it was just entertainment. But it seems like him and the Green Streets, they're deeply hurt by this feeling of being conned or led astray. It's just kind of interesting to watch and observe.
No, I agree. I do agree. I was going to ask Jessica something because she said something that I disagreed with. Oh yeah. And you mentioned Wilcock, and Jessica was on Twitter saying, people should be happy the skeptics debunked Wilcock. But for folks who have been in this for a long time, we debunked Wilcock many, many years ago. Corey Good never gave him 1 second of my time. Emery Smith, who said he did all of these autopsies on ET. I'm like, really? Give me a break. And then you have all the guys who are time traveling, taking portals back and forth to Mars. So I'm glad that other people have called them out for some other feet, because they did have a big fan base. So that is good that those folks, made it clear they were wasting our time, like when Jimmy Church was having them on nonstop, which He
Jimmy
explained,
searched at him on not long ago. That's what
yeah,
I was saying. It was
Wilcock.
an extreme example of probably one of the most extreme examples of something that the skeptics have done for the community is Corey Good and David Wilcock. Like, they were exposed for their bullshit. And you know how many people, how many followers they have still? You know
Oh,
how much money that they make still? You know how
it's
many people
crazy.
eat it up? It's crazy.
It's sad. It's really sad.
It's
David
sad.
Wilcock. I'm gonna let you go. That dude. I'm gonna bring somebody else on. Thank you for being here. And Gary, if you see that link you want to jump on, you can.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Joe.
No problem. Have a good night. I'm just bringing this guy, Bart. You have to unmute yourself. Yeah, Wilcock. I remember he was doing live streams and he was getting these super chats. It was insane. And then he was charging $333 for his class, which he was getting. And when he first came out in 2000, he wrote a paper with Richard Hoagland, who was controversial. I loved Hoagland though. But he wrote
I
a
feel
paper.
like those more extreme grifters who are just sucking all of the money out of the community, I feel like they're getting less and less because more people are speaking out against them. That's not a bad thing,
No, that's
especially
a
if
good
we're
thing.
going to take this serious.
No,
Here's
that's
something. I'm going to play the skeptic right now, though. And of course,
And
I agree
Bart,
with
jump
you
in when
guys
you
that-
want, Bart.
Okay.
And of course, I agree with you guys that I don't believe those guys' stories. But have we actually proven them to be wrong?
Which ones?
I don't know. Look, Corey Good, for example. How can we prove such a wild? How can we prove
Well,
or disprove such a wild story? I don't believe his story, and I think
No, you
he's
can't.
generally, yeah. It's like, how can you disprove that he was on Mars or whatever he says? It's crazy.
well, he and David Wilcock right now are trying to build a spaceship and a hangar that they have. So just like TTSA, give it a couple years and we'll find out.
I mean, I think TTSA was. I mean, Jim Semivan, who's no slouch, the guy he talked about. He goes, "That's what interested in him. Just the idea of trying to mimic what they know is possible based on sightings, whatever it is, our tech or something else. It's possible." So they're like, Semivan said, "If not Semivan, Steve Justice, he goes, if it's possible and it's been seen, like Kelly Johnson, who worked at Skunkworks, he had an amazing sighting. The idea was if it's there and it's flying, it can be done." So I don't think it's
Yet
probably
we
not.
still don't have any spaceships. It's like Wilcock copied TTSA and their whole idea in the beginning of, hey, we're going to build a spaceship. It was like a couple years after that, here comes Wilcock out saying, hey, we're going to build a spaceship for you. And nobody's seen a spaceship yet. So I guess, only time can tell.
Part of the problem
No.
with these guys is that they're amazing storytellers. They're like evil geniuses, man. Like I always tell Joe this, like when I listen to Daniel Burrish on YouTube, like his stories are so good. Like I love them and I want them to be true. Like they're so entertaining. And I still have like a soft spot in my heart for Daniel Burrish, even though I don't believe anything he says, but his stories are so freaking good. And like, even if you listen to Corey Good, like the stories are so like cool and entertaining and he tells them so well. I don't know that new people coming into the subject will be able to, determine what's what unless they, get on UFO Twitter. I didn't know at first that Corey Good was totally full of crap. And my friend Daniel Allen Jones was like, yeah, I don't think I believe that guy. You better watch it. And I was like, oh, wow, okay.
I feel like everybody's gone down that rabbit hole. I remember listening to the whole 20 and Back podcast in my truck on my lunch break and just thinking, what the hell am I listening to? And that was years and years ago. But I guess like my example of what you just said, Danny, would be Bob Lazar. I know that there are a lot of sketchy things in the guy's background. I know he's probably completely full of shit, but he is like one of those cult figures that at this point I take him as a sci-fi cult icon. And I love his story. It's a phenomenal story. I would love for it to eventually one day be proven true. I have low doubts that that's ever going to happen, but I'm never going to stop being sort of a Lazar fangirl, I guess you could say.
No,
Even
I'm
though
saying,
I acknowledge in my mind that, I don't really feed into it and believe it. You can have those people that you look up to and admire just because you've seen it for so many years, but still take what their story is with a grain of salt.
Yeah,
That's
and
so
I don't
funny.
know the answer to Lazar, but he does some of the things he said does match up now that we're noticing, but I don't want to get all into that. But I don't have
Can
the
I bring
strongest
something up
opinions on those are.
Lua Elizondo said?
Yes, go ahead,
Yeah,
Bart.
I found this on Twitter. You know, Lua Elizondo is, I think he's a person that's really trying to get the truth out, but he's being held back by his NDA. And, you know, he's a soldier. He's following orders. But I think if you read between the lines, he is revealing the truth. And I like to read something that, you know, he had posted, or that
Go
I'll
ahead.
post something he quoted on Reddit. He says, what if it turns out that at some point we find an ancestor that is really the link between us and our past? Is it possible that the definition of being a human being, is constantly evolving? I would submit to you that may very well be the case, and that being human isn't necessarily being this. Being human is something far more profound, far more existential, something that is beyond our current comprehension and reasoning. And then he goes on to say, or there's another page that's a link to this. It says, are there any hints in the UAP literature that there is evidence that the ultra-terrestrial scenario outlined above may have some validity? Author Nick Redfern, in his book, The NASA Conspiracies, asserts that there is. His interview of an ex-NASA Gemini contractor led to the claim that there was evidence of a small band of individuals who are not alien from some distant star system at all, but supposedly represented the last vestiges of a very ancient terrestrial race of beings that thousands of years ago had an advanced and isolated civilization that was responsible for the legends of Atlantis and similar stories, but who were forced by circumstances to retreat into remote sequestered locale for survival, for example, the mountains or the seabed. At present, they were primarily concerned with nuclear war and degradation of the environment, and this has led to some degree of attempting to influence our culture. However, they felt it had to be carried out under the ruse that they were from distant star systems to protect what they felt to be their vulnerable. And I think what he's saying is that these crafts that we're seeing in our skies are being operated by a civilization that used to occupy the planet. But because they knew that a meteor was coming to impact the Earth, they moved into the oceans and into deep Earth caverns. And these are the people that we are seeing today. They're the descendants of these ancient cultures that that we now refer to as Atlantis. They didn't disappear. And what he's saying is that in order to protect themselves, they put out this ruse that all of these aliens are coming, or that these aliens are coming from distant planets, when in reality they're coming from our oceans and deep Earth caverns, which is why there are so many instances of UFOs coming in and out of our oceans.
Has anybody else read Redfern's book? I thought it was phenomenal. I really enjoyed it. I think it's more of like a Eric von Daniken, Zachariah Sitchin meet New Age ufology mix-up and mashup. And I mean, I liked it. I think it was good. It gives you a lot of thought-provoking, subjects to pursue. What's your thoughts on it?
What's the name of it?
The book that they talk about here is the NASA Conspiracies.
What are you reading from, though? What were you reading from? I know the first one was Lou. What was the second thing you read from?
I'm not too sure. It was on from
Reddit?
This page here. Can you see? And then when I go to this next page, that's what it came to. It says loose hope on mankind, and Hal's paper on ultra-terrestrial is very interesting.
First of all, you read really well, and I was ready just to lay down and close my eyes and just listen to you read the rest of the book. And by the way, Space Oddities, thank you for the $10. I really appreciate that. And the one thing I like about your theory is it talks about a comet impact, because I do think we're going to go through something like that. I don't know if it's going to be in our lifetimes, but I've studied a little bit cataclysms, and I'm not sure if what we're seeing now, if there really is an uptick in UFO sightings, that it has something to do with what we're about to go through cataclysm wise. I hope not. But yeah, I would like to read more, because all of that was really interesting.
Do you think it's possible that the magnetic fields are getting ready to flip?
Yeah, I don't know what that would look like if that happened. The thing that really worries me is if there Mark Carlotta, who did a lot of work on Mars and alleged artificial structures, he did a lot of work now recently on a physical pole shift where the pole has actually switched many times in the history of this planet. And if we get a full pole shift physical, it's going to be really difficult for a lot of people if the actual Earth's crust moves above the planet like an orange skin above, moving on an orange. Some people don't think that's possible, but Carlotto's done some really great work showing that, the pole keeps switching. I need to get him on because he's not in high demand. And so yeah, I don't know about, I do think the magnetic poles will shift, but I don't know what that looks like as far as any cataclysms, what it would look like on this planet.
Well, I remember hearing stories about they found mastodons that were frozen with food still in their
And
mouths.
and that would go to the physical pole ship moving really quick where they just died so quickly in a new type of climate.
But
That's the
not
one you
just
were reading
died
from,
so
right?
quickly, but they also froze. Now, imagine sticking a piece of meat in the freezer, and how long does that take, that piece of meat to freeze? And imagine taking an entire mastodon, a living, warm-blooded animal, and it instantly bringing its temperature down, to a level where it freezes while it's still eating the food.
Yeah, it's
So there
amazing.
must have
Something
been some
happened.
type of quick temperature change,
Yeah, and
supposedly.
I think a physical pole ship could do that. Like some people don't think it's possible, but I will make an effort to, and I've thought about it before, to have Mark Carlotta on. The guy is really sharp. And when you want to talk about artificial structures on the moon or Mars, mostly Mars, he's great. The guy's he's an image expert. He put some software together. I'm not sure if it was military software, and he put it on Mars, and it picks apart anything that's not natural. And the one thing that stood out was the face on Mars, which a lot of people think is bogus, but in my opinion, that whole area has, I think it has artificial structures, but the only way to know for sure is to send a man mission to Mars and look at it up close. There's a pyramid under the water in Japan. I think it's Yonagandi, that where they had multiple divers looking at it underwater. One diver, geologist, says this is artificial. Another diver, I'm not sure if they were both geologists, but the other diver says no, it's just natural. So that's, even with an up close look, they couldn't decide. But Mars, we have to have an up close look to know for sure. I do think there's a connection between Mars and here. That's how I got into this from the very early days, watching Richard Hoagland's United Nations presentation, which he's another one. Danny talks about somebody telling great stories with Dan Burrish. Hoagland told the best stories, and a lot of them, as I'm hearing them, this is nonsense, but it was so good to listen to on Art Bell. It was a lot of fun. As long as you know you're getting entertainment, I'm okay with that.
Man, that's bringing back memories. You know what though? Hogan was right a couple times. I remember once he was talking about it was like sabotage on one of the NASA things, and then it ended up like it was sabotaged.
Yeah, Mars Observer, I think.
Yeah, it was crazy. He's when he's right, he's super right. Like, there's a couple other times he was right. Most of the other times, 98% of the time, he was super super wrong. And then I guess like they just like cut him off, huh? They don't let him come on anymore. But
It was
man,
a
he
big
was
he had a big argument with George Norrie where he said, if I do this, you have to give me a whole show to host by my own. And I forget what he had to do, but it happened, and Norrie turned him down, and it was the end of the relationship. So he did his own show, which he still does. He has a very small audience from what I know, but I think he was on like a couple of months ago with Norrie, so that was good to see. But on Art Bell, he was on all the time. I would listen for 5 hours. The transcripts were online. Between his Mars stuff, I saw him lecture multiple times. I saw him lecture. I was in Tampa. I drove across the state to see him at the Brevard Community College, and he talked about the stuff that Diana Pasulka talks about, how NASA was taking launches, and they seemed to be deciding when to launch based on certain star angles. It was all astronomy related, dedicated to the god Apollo and certain angles, and it was really great. And I had brought my ex-wife with me, and I had my mother-in-law and my aunt, and I think it was like 5 hours, and they were falling asleep, and I was like wide awake. I was having so much fun, and then I had to drive back across the state afterwards, but I loved it. Yeah. So, but there are people who are dangerous, like Ed Dames would make predictions with remote viewing, and I would get, when I did my newsletter at the time, people would write me and say, I'm leaving the country. I'm going to a safe spot because of what Ed Dames said. I'm like, please don't do anything based on what Ed Dames said. There's no There's no solar flare that's going to take out the entire planet. Please don't worry about it. Nope, sorry, already made my decision. Sorry, even if it wasn't for Dames, I'm going. So there was definitely some danger to that stuff too. And I asked Art Bell about it on Facebook before he died, but he never wanted to address it.
You know who DM'd me like 6 months ago, and I don't even remember what he said, was Louis Turi. Remember him from Coast?
Yeah, he was an astrologer.
Yeah, he DM'd me. I don't remember why. It was crazy. I was like, man, I grew up listening to you.
He was on Jeff Rentz all the time. He was like the guy. He was like the resident astrologer who did. I think it was Vedic astrology. I'm not sure.
Man, these are good memories. I got to start listening to Nori again.
I don't like listen. I can't listen to Nori. I'm only listening to Nap. Nothing. There are other people I listen to, but just not George Nori. Just because I don't want to insult him. I just don't listen. Jessica is not here. I do want to start reading.
No, I found a photo of some tubes, glass tubes that they supposedly found on Mars.
Yeah.
If you can, how do I show it to you?
There you go. And I've seen the glass. I've seen those before. And it's once again, it's you talk to some people and they're like, oh, those are artificial, some sort of plumbing. And then somebody else is like, nope, it's just natural. It's just the way the wind is and erosion. So it's impossible to know unless we go there. It's the only way to know. And I've seen that stuff. It's pretty old, the pictures.
I don't remember this. There was a former NASA scientist, so he was like the director of NASA. I can't remember his name, but he gave a presentation where he showed like this giant question mark that was carved out of Mars. But yeah, he definitely asserts that there was a civilization on Mars. You know, that there's a lot of evidence up there, and I think there was something else had to do with something in the atmosphere that is only present after a nuclear explosion. I don't remember what material it is, but there's some type of material that that's only created after
John Brandenburg. John Brandenburg was the scientist who had the theory that there was a nuclear war on Mars. I think he's dead now. I'm not sure. Yeah, that's another interesting theory. What he believes he had the evidence to back it up. The other theory is based on remote viewing, so it's not science, but Joe McMonagle, his remote viewing showed that it was a comet that ripped apart the atmosphere, and they knew it was coming, and some of them got away and came here for their new life. And that's why we also have pyramids, because if you look at some of the Mars stuff, it looks like pyramids buried under sand for hundreds of thousands of years, highly eroded. But like I said, we need to go there to know for sure. I do think there's a connection. There's some really great books on Mars. Graham Hancock has a great book on Mars. I forget what it's called. It might just be Mars.
Yeah, my feeling is people who sunburn are the descendants of people who didn't come from this planet.
I've heard that theory too, and people like might mock you for that, but it's like it doesn't seem like we belong. It's like we can't even be out in the sun. It's like,
yeah. But, how come Europeans are never considered indigenous?
Right.
And if you look at hunter-gatherers, all hunter-gatherer societies all have melanin, and then you have these you have these Greeks who just appeared in the Mediterranean and started building these amazing structures that there's no way hunter-gatherers just woke up one day and decided to build like Greece. And the way they were building, they were using sacred geometry. They were using the golden ratio. They were using advanced math, advanced architectural techniques. I mean, look at the Temple of Bacchus or the Temple of Jupiter, in Baalbek, Lebanon, right? Those were some of the first structures ever built on planet Earth. And you cannot tell me, that some Africans, rolled over in some boats into Lebanon and, developed a culture that was able to cut blocks of stone that are 1,200 tons, and build things like that.
They definitely, in my opinion, had some knowledge of technology. It's like in this country, it's near Homestead, Florida. It's called the Coral Castle. If anybody gets a chance to go, I've been there, and nobody knows how he did it. It was just him and one helper, and he did all of his work at night. And some of the blocks were huge blocks of coral. And he said he knew the secret of the Egyptian pyramid builders, and he took that secret with him to his death. So nobody knows. I mean, there's this giant door. There was this giant door that you would just push. It was perfectly balanced. When it broke, they had to bring in like this giant crane just to fix it. And they're like, how the hell did he do this on his own? Nobody knows.
Yeah, I don't think he's from this planet either. I think, a lot of ancient cultures arrived here from other planets because, like, how do you explain, like, again, like the Greek or like the Mycenaeans or the Minoans, their cultures were intact. They were highly advanced, and there's no evidence in the archaeological records of culture, developing up to a point where they were able to build the type of structures that they were building. So, I assert that, that culture was brought intact from another planet.
Bart, I thank you for everything tonight. I have more people waiting that I didn't realize were waiting, so I'm going to let you
Well,
go. But thank you for sharing everything, and definitely come back next time.
definitely, we'll do. Take care.
See ya. So, hey, you have to unmute yourself. And John, I do see you down there. I will bring you in a little bit. Hey, if you can hear me, unmute yourself, and we can hear from you. Jess, you can unmute too. I didn't realize how long you had been there. There was more people
Yeah,
here.
sorry, I lost connectivity.
No,
But
it's
yeah, I'd
fine.
like for John to jump in eventually. And just jumping back into what you guys were talking about, that case, the guy said that he come up with some type of technology to be able to levitate stones. I don't know if it was with some type of sonar technology or whatever it was, or
Yeah.
it had something. It was an amazing story, and I don't think it's ever been explained. So I do enjoy that side of it.
I'm actually going to go. You can let more people in. Thanks for having me, guys. I'd stay longer. I just got to wake up super early because of this dang
All right,
job
Danny.
that I hate so much that I'm quitting. But
Yeah, thanks, Danny.
yeah, man.
Yeah.
And I wish I could. I'm going to have to come back for the replay because I want to hear what you guys say about the Hal Puthoff paper because that's a big deal.
Yeah,
All right,
Danny,
yeah,
I never had a
thank you.
chance to talk to you before. Maybe one day in the future.
Yeah, dude, for sure. All right, bye, guys.
Take care, Danny. Have a good night. Good luck with the job.
Thank you.
How's it going, John?
Hanging in there, man. How you doing, Joe?
I'm doing
How are
good.
you?
What do you think about what we've been talking about? Anything?
What's up, John?
Jessica, we finally talk. How are you?
I'm doing great. I can't wait to hear what you got to say.
Yeah, I don't even know where to begin. There's not enough time in one night to talk about all of it. You just got to pick and choose. There's too much to discuss. I read what Hal Puthoff wrote. That was really interesting what he wrote. There's a lot of good points there. So many possibilities. I have a gut feeling it could be a combination, like you said, but not just survivors of the Great Cataclysm that supposedly most of them went extinct 12,900 years ago. Some of them survived. The ancient Egyptian story that Hermes, one of them, his name was Hermes. He was a giant-sized being that brought the jade tablets and helped restart civilization after there was a brief dark ages, and then he helped restart. There could have been some survivors that have been keeping tabs on us and maybe went to live somewhere else and have been coming back. Could be also extraterrestrials and interdimensionals also. I wanted to know what you guys think, though. Do you think there would be a lot more public panic if it was aliens from another planet? Or do you think interdimensionals or a cousin of ours that's a lot taller and bigger, stronger and smarter and older than ours would be a lot more shocking and cause more public panic than just a tiny little 4 foot tall gray alien or, a mantid or a reptilian? Which one do you think would possibly cause more public panic?
Go ahead, Jess.
Well, for the longest time under my profile, I had extraterrestrial, interdimensional, and just something else. Like, we have no idea what they are. And if I had to guess, I would say that what people are experiencing is possibly a combination of multiple different phenomena that we just have yet to understand. We can't rule out
Agreed.
extraterrestrials from another planet that have traveled across the universe to get here. We can't rule out an interdimensional type entity, and we can't rule out ultra-terrestrials that have been here, been living on this planet, and have evolved. So that may be part of the confusion. I don't think it matters which one comes up first. There's going to be some type of reaction to it. I think most of the reaction is going to be disbelief at first. I think even if disclosure happens tomorrow, the government comes out and say, hey, there's aliens. I think most of the world is going to react in disbelief.
Right.
Once it sets in, I think you're going to have different religious sectors like coming out and saying, oh, this is our God coming back, or this is a demon, or this is a malevolent presence. I think it's going to take time, and unfortunately, I don't think we're going to see it in our lifetime. I think
Right.
even
Yeah.
if tomorrow it comes out, I think it's going to take a long time for people to actually absorb this new information that's presented to the world.
Yeah, I mean, this has been these topics have been talked about. I've talked about on other channels on video discussions a lot. You can go into it for hours. I mean, I have a gut feeling too. It's probably a combination of all of it. But these ancient civilizations, if you look at what the previous guy was saying, he's correct. I mean, I've talked about it on a lot of other channels too. These blocks that are 1,200 tons, some of them, and they found in Siberia over 3,000 tons, in Saudi Arabia and Yemen even larger. And also in China, some of them are over 100,000 tons each. Whoever they were, they had the capability of taking granite, diorite, combination pink granite, which is even harder, sometimes even corundum, which is almost as hard as a diamond. All these stones are getting close to diamond level hardness. And they had the capability of cutting them up as if they're just soft bread, like with some kind of high-tech laser 3D cutting machine that was maybe run by some advanced computer system. But we don't have helicopters or airplanes that can do that today. So whoever they were, right before the Great Flood, they were already ahead of us as far as construction, engineering, and that kind of technology. So if they've had another 12,900 years to develop their technology even further, that would kind of make sense that by now they would have anti-gravity, zero-point energy, and become interdimensional and have colonies on other planets. And I don't know if Joe, you ever want to have Brian Forrester on. I follow his channel. He's been following the DNA results of these elongated skull, tall, giant-sized, red-haired and blonde-haired beings that apparently were they were the ancestors of the even bigger beings that built all this tens of thousands of years ago. So maybe that's true. Maybe they came from other planets. They were giant, elf-looking, tall, platinum blonde-haired, red-haired, with huge almond-shaped blue eyes, and they came here with technology and they set up a colony here. Who knows? We need answers, but I agree with Jessica. I don't think the government's ever going to admit full disclosure. I don't think real, true disclosure is ever going to happen for a lot of reasons.
Not yet. I mean, look at how long this is taking. This is going at a snail's pace at the moment. And look at my grandfather.
They're trying to put the toothpaste back in the tube now. Like Richard Dolan said, they've been dialing it way back. I talked about this with Alien Girl a couple of nights ago with Gary Voorhees on the video panel. They're trying to put the toothpaste back in the tube now. You remember on Small Podcast, Christopher Mellon was talking about 46,000 miles per hour with 90-degree turns, 5 observables, being able to disassemble sensors remotely, slide 9 stuff, and stuff that's so far beyond human technology that it's laughable. And then recently he's dialed it way back to just talking about adversarial drones and 600-mile-per-hour drones, which is well within the capabilities of human technology. So somebody is warning somebody to dial this way back and put it back in the tube again for another 75 years. It's very disappointing.
Well, there's something that I would like to say, just real quick, Joe, I promise I'll be quick. There's something I'd like to say about the 5 observables that Luis Elizondo has put out. Okay, so as technology develops, we're going to catch up to those 5 observables. If we don't have disclosure before that happens, it's going to be complete and utter chaos. Everything is going to be questioned, and we're at the precipice of a jumping off point to where we cannot discern right now what's in our sky, whether it's drones or hypersonic vehicles or some other man-made technology. If this was a discussion, if we had this internet technology the way that we're speaking right now 100 years ago, without the aviation aspect of it, it would be much easier than it is right now. But because we have progressed and because we have advanced and because we continue to advance, it's going to continue to get more and more difficult. So if they're going to put something out, they need to put it out now. They need to put it out with proof, or it doesn't matter if something lands on the White House lawn at this moment. People are still going to question, was that us? Because we have that technology.
Yeah, and I don't know And I've recently I get flack from people when I mention the possibility that I think we may have cracked gravity. Just saying that we may have cracked gravity gets so much negative feedback. And doesn't mean, and they're like, well, what do you mean? And so when this sighting happened in the 40s, you think that was us? And I'm like, no, I never said there's not something anomalous. We have that too, but I think we may have cracked gravity. And if people look on my Twitter feed and you search for Nick Cook, who wrote the book Hunt for Zero Point, he did some digging and found some interesting things. No proof that we have cracked gravity, but in his gut, he thinks we may have, and it may be buried in some black program. I don't know if that's true, but I interviewed Will Miller, who was part of the Wilson Davis documents. I met him back in 2007, went to his house, interviewed him a couple of years ago for Wilson Davis, and he says, he believes we have a craft operational that can go any place, any time in the universe. So I don't know. And then you have Eric Davis, who says the crash retrieval program shut down in 1989 because we failed to make any progress. Maybe there's another program. Maybe that's true. And we have another program that broke through on something else, on triangular craft. I have no idea. We have no details whatsoever. Back to your question. Let me just finish the one question. All right, go ahead before I change the subject.
I was going to say, this is something that you and I have gone back and forth on several occasions. We don't have to have cracked gravity. Okay, if you look at the technology that we have been studying since the 40s, since the 50s, like, we have the capability at this moment to have advanced nuclear propulsion. We have something that could possibly mimic anti-gravity technology. We already have things that can do hypersonic speeds. We have things that can do 90-degree angles. We have all of this already in our arsenal of technology that we have. And I know people disagree with it, but it went into the private sector. Even after it was banned, it never stopped. Technology, this stuff never stopped. It was the government funding was taken from a public eye. It was put into black budget programs. That's what a lot of people don't understand. We have this ability already, so it's going to be very, very hard to determine what's ours, what's alien at this point.
Well, if you listen to the insiders, they say that the only way to tell right now is that they say that we've cracked it, but it's just a primitive version of the non-human original version that they originally found in the 1930s and 40s, and ours still has bolts and rivets on it, whereas the non-human craft is completely 3D printed as one entire piece with no right angles. It's all curved, and it looks like it was created in super high-tech atomic level 3D printer in orbit that's so far beyond our 3D printing technology, some kind of interdimensional 3D printer. That's how you can tell, because it can go underwater, outer space. It can go hundreds of thousands of miles per hour. And it's just similar to what was reverse engineered, except just way beyond that. If you listen to what the insiders say, that's what they're saying so far. And you're right.
Can I say something about the Tic Tac that's going to piss everybody off?
What?
No,
all
go
right.
ahead.
If you go back and look at the Tic Tac, the Tic Tac described by Fravor, it was said to have a seal or some type of line or rivet or an indentation in the center of it.
Across like across the middle, or it cut it in half. I'm not sure if it was horizontal or vertical. There was a line there, and you have legs, which always made me think human.
Okay, so you got legs, which could be some type of wing or propulsion, something to make it more aerodynamic. You have those things that are very human characteristics. Okay, that's why I'm on the fence with the Tic Tac. I have always held the Tic Tac in the back as something that's never been explained to this day. I say it's not been yet cracked, even though I've retweeted what's his face saying, hey, it was hypersonic, or look at this possibility. I still don't have my mind made up, but I still think that it's awesome, because nobody has an answer for it. We should potentially look at those types of things.
Well,
we should, and don't forget I believe it was an Australian military pilot that claims the way he's describing what he saw in 1931 was almost exactly like a Tic Tac. The color, the shape, everything. So we have to take their testimony into consideration, and until it's proven that they're definitely lying, then we got to at least give them the benefit of the doubt that they might very well be telling the truth, and that would be very telling if somebody saw a Tic Tac in 1931.
And as far as theories, to me, the only serious theories are it's our technology. Somehow it was we have advanced black technology, or it's other. I don't think it's a
Right.
hypersonic missile. The evidence does not fit that whatsoever. It's not the X-43 test. It doesn't even come close to fitting the evidence. So if somebody wants
Okay,
to
the
throw out
only
theories,
reason I said that, Joe, and I know you're pointing that at me, is because it was going on at the exact same time as the Tic Tac,
well,
and
it didn't
I
say
only
before.
asked
Okay.
if the guys knew that that test was going on. NASA did that test. Do the pilots who come out, were they aware of that test was going on at the same time? That's the only thing that I asked.
No, but you
Mm.
actually have you tried to make the argument that that actually was the Tic Tac, and I said no. The hypersonic, not the hypersonic, the X-43. I think it was launched at 40,000 feet and went up to 100,000 feet. I mean, Fravor, Dietrich, Slate, and the other guy saw it at the water, but we don't have to argue it. It's definitely something I've considered when I wrote a couple of articles way back when. I said, maybe it's like, how the hell did they know so fast to get people on board to grab that data? Did they know it was our test, or were they following the objects for, it was like 10 days? That stuff had been seen on the Nimitz, and so they knew it was out there. But I'm open to
So
it.
did
I
they
can't
know
say
that was out there? Has that ever been stated
they
as
were
a fact?
tracking 100 knot
Who?
whatever they were on radar at a pretty high altitude, which is very odd. Those you don't normally see very slow moving objects. So that's when Kevin Day said we should probably check it out because it might interfere with some of our operations and our training. And that's when they went out and they engaged the Tic Tac. And then Chad Underwood got it on FLIR, and he said it was, it was performing. He didn't say anti-gravity, but he said, defying physics when he was following it. So,
But these people who are saying these things are defying physics, do we actually have proof that any of this has defied physics?
no, we don't have proof of any of it. We don't have proof. We have a video and we have the pilots. We have Alex Dietrich talking about it, making these nonsensical turns. But no, we don't have proof of absolutely anything. So it's like,
So,
I
so
know
why
that
the
and I
hell did I
understand
get
that.
like 300 comments when I brought something up? Hey, let's discuss this. That's one of those things. Like people are so defensive over this. So
Yeah.
people are
Basically, we
so
just
like want it to
yeah.
be aliens. It's like
I mean,
nobody's looking at it from all
well,
angles.
I don't think that,
Basically,
well, maybe some
yeah.
people, maybe, but let me just get back to, you said, what do you think is more scary or
Mhm.
unacceptable to human beings? Is it ET or
Right.
our relatives or something interdimensional? And something that George Knapp has said, he goes, can we handle the truth? He goes, it depends on what the truth is. If it turns out
Right.
that it's something that hangs out in the something that hangs out in the electromagnetic spectrum that we can't see, and it's around us all the time, and they could see us and they can watch us taking a shower, something like that, no, people aren't going to be able to handle that. How would you even get that story out? And then you have the whole alleged hitchhiker phenomena. It's like,
They'll
if
never let
that's
that out.
real, what's going on with that? It's like, that's not acceptable to, for us. It's even scary to us, but we can accept it as maybe it's a possibility. Most people are going to be like, you're crazy. Give me a break. That's why it's not brought
What
up
if
by
the
Lou.
hitchhiker phenomenon, Joe? What if that is completely different from what we see buzzing around in our skies? What if
Yeah, it
there's
could be
something
100%
paranormal
different.
going on
I
Right.
can't
that's
figure out. Yeah.
completely disconnected from aliens?
And I said somebody who has more access to data than we do. And I said, what do you think? Is it multiple different things, ET, interdimensional, extraterrestrial, time travel, or is it one intelligence mimicking all those other ones just to trick us for whatever reason into thinking they're coming from somewhere else? And the person said to me, he goes, they gave me some examples of that were contradictory, and they said it's a shit show. They go, we don't know whether or not that's
Yeah.
still the case 2 or 3 years later. I don't know. So yeah, it's very possible that that kind of hitchhiker thing has nothing to do with UFOs in the sky. But there's
Right.
also Paul Eno, who has talked about poltergeist flaps that go along with UFO flaps, which makes me think there is a connection. And I will have Paul on, and I can't wait to have him on because he's really interesting, and he could just do his presentation and I could just pick his brain. It's really, really interesting guy. He thinks we're dealing with parasites.
So
Yeah.
look at this new technology and this new, not technology, this new legislation that's been put out. It has nothing to do with the paranormal. It's only looking at nuts and bolts crafts that we catch in our skies. How are we supposed to answer all of these questions if we're
That's a
so
good point.
limited at this point?
They're never going to admit I don't think they're ever in a million years going to admit about the orbs, the shadow beings, all the missing people all over the world that are scientifically unexplainable missing people cases, including children, boats, airplanes, the hitchhiker effect. Those are things I think nobody will ever admit. The most I think they will ever admit I was just talking about this with Gary Voorhees the other day, is that they might admit that some of it that we've come to the conclusion after 80 years of studying it, some of it is non-human in origin. They used to be here, they left, or they're not a threat to that. Maybe even that, probably not. But admitting, if you look at David Paulides' research, all the missing people that are just gone without a trace, not a drop or shred of hair or blood is ever found again. And if you look at the surroundings of how they go missing, and even when they're found again, how they're found and what state their body looks like and what's happening, it doesn't seem like humans can do that. I don't think they'll ever. That would cause mass global panic.
That's a
And that goes
damn good
back to what,
point.
What I think,
Look at last year. Look at just last year's. There was there is a government entity. It's not just a government entity. It's a global entity that produces a paper, and I will try to send it to you, Joe, if I find it. It shows all of the global missing persons cases,
right,
and it breaks it down into categories, into everything. You know, people are doing some messed up shit around the world. There's a lot of it's attributed to cannibalism or sex trafficking, but there's a lot that is unaccounted for.
right.
So we can't account for any of those cases. And I love Missing 411. I followed it for many, many years.
Same here.
It's just one of those things. Like, what if how in the hell is the government going to come out and say, hey, X amount of cases is attributed to abductions from aliens?
They can't do that ever.
They
Like Joe
can't
said, they
ever.
cannot admit that some of them are interdimensional. They can appear and disappear at will. They can be sitting there in your bedroom watching you sleep, watching you all day long. That would scare people too much. And taking your kids or your loved ones without permission, without consent. I asked that on UFO Garage to Elizondo on a super chat. I asked about the missing people, and he did confirm that they do know about it. The military knows about the mysteriously missing people, and it is a very important, valid topic to look into.
and I'm gonna
I'm pretty sure they know. And David Paulides says the FBI does show up and is keeping track of the ones that are completely scientifically unexplainable. So they're keeping records of people that are just taken without permission.
John, I'm going to let you go because I need to get into this Puthoff paper. Thank you very much for coming on. And anytime I'm here, you want to come on, feel free.
All right.
All right. Have a good night.
You too.
Thanks. And we need to get to the Puthoff paper because I only wanted to do a couple hours. Hey, we have one other person, Hey, who's muted. I'll give you one more chance. If you want to unmute your mic and speak, you can. Otherwise, I am going to let you go. All right. I'm going to let him go and get him out of the stream. And now, what is Shelly asking? Who pays you? I don't know what you're asking, Shelly. Who pays who? I got $10 tonight, which was great from Gary. I don't know. Nobody pays Jess, so I'm not really sure. I'm missing what
Oh,
the
I can
point.
tell you, I'm not paid. I wish I were paid. Like, I know
I'm
Joe
good.
wish
Yeah.
he was paid. That's another one of those ridiculous claims that everybody, especially you guys who have been the front of this whole thing from the beginning, everybody thinks, oh, you guys are being paid from the top down. That's not true. I can confirm that's not true. Nobody's
No.
getting paid, and if they are, it's not any of us.
Yeah, somebody accused Danny and I of getting paid by TTSA, and then somebody recently accused me of getting paid by George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell. It's like, no, I get a few $100 from Patreon and then PayPal and Venmo. It helps me a little bit. Does not pay my bills. I would love if I had enough support to do that, but as of right now, I don't. I need to do more YouTube. I know that people love that, especially having somebody like you. I've never had a co-host like this, so it's great. You guys can talk and I can eat Cheetos because I haven't eaten dinner. Let's
Put
last
off.
one and
Let's
then
go.
let's do Puthoff. If there's a UFO connection to these missing people, I'd consider it. I haven't looked into it. I don't know if it's UFO, but it's really odd. You should check out the documentaries because these cases look very, very anomalous. I don't know what the heck's going on. And Paulides, he's a super nice guy. He's a little hard to get along with online. If you say the wrong thing, he'll block you easily. But yeah, they may be accidents. I don't know. We don't know. But I'm going to get to Puthoff. We got to read it. I haven't read it. I'm really curious to read it. And I'll start reading. If you want to read it all, you can. Let me know, Jess. We have 70 people on a Sunday night, which is really good, with no guests. So thank you for watching, everybody. And I'm going to sneeze in a second. Darn it.
Yeah, sorry. Somebody just jumped into the chat again and saying, "I want to know about her. I want to know who's paid this person." It's just probably another one of my trolls that have been following me the past couple of weeks. And you know what? Thank you. You know, you keep going. You keep putting me out there. I don't
Who is
like to be
paying
out
you,
there,
Jeff?
but the more that
Are
you
the
guys
Taliban
do
paying
that,
you? Are the
the
Taliban
more that you
paying you? I
guys
think
do that just pisses me off a little bit more.
you know what Travis Taylor would say. He'd say, "God
Yeah, I
damn it,
know it's
Jesse, who the hell is paying you to go to? Who is gonna pay you to come on a TV show for free? You're obviously getting paid." There you go.
I love your Travis Taylor impression. I always have, and
So
I always will. So let's go.
I'm gonna read the put off in Bernie's voice. Bernie Sanders, under consideration in this paper too. All right, I'm not gonna do
Bernie's
that.
even better, but knock it off.
Under consideration. So it's Hal Puthoff. This paper has been rumored for a long time. I think the only person who's seen it in our community was Ryan Bledsoe, probably through his connection with Jim Semivan. Ultraterrestrial models. Puthoff. Abstract. Under consideration in this paper are two seminal statements, and their what is that word? Concomitant? I don't know that word. I've never seen that word
I
before. Do you
can't
know that?
see it. Like you need to make it. Can you make it bigger so I can see it?
Darn it. I'm gonna have to look it up. Problem is you can't
I know.
see the rest.
Yeah, but you can't see all of it. It's cut off now. Like make it a little bit small. Oh, there we go. There we go. That's perfect.
Can you
Almost.
see it?
Almost.
No.
Right there. That's perfect.
Hold on, I'll do it. Just give me 1
No,
second.
you just
I
go
still have
back.
more room to go. Watch.
Oh,
There we go.
perfect. Right there. Right there.
Yeah, what is that word? Concomitants.
It's cut off by my face, so I can't see it.
No, it's right at the top. Right under consideration in this paper are two seminal statements, and their concomitants currently unknown. Anyway, as follows. There's an unidentified phenomenon interacting with the current human population on Earth. That's one. By the way, there's a link in the comments to this, not the comments, in the description. And if people, I don't think I've ever asked this. If you want to like this and subscribe, it helps, but I don't really know exactly how it helps. I think it's the way the algorithms are. And hello, Mick from Australia.
Mickey.
It is currently unknown whether the phenomenon is exclusively extraterrestrial, extradimensional, crypto-terrestrial, meaning it's here, based here, native to this planet, demonic, which when I saw that, like, wow, this is really open-minded, djinn, which I know you've done a lot of work on,
Which is
proto,
basically another word for crypto-terrestrial, if you really want to get technical with it, because they both originate on Earth if you go back to the history of it.
and yeah. Hold on, I'm sorry, Shelly. You're not gonna constantly just keep do this. I'm gonna get rid of you. Sorry.
Yeah, get rid of that person because that person's obviously one of my trolls. So have them be out.
All right. So yeah, I've had her. I don't know why she's like that, but whatever. It's under consideration. No, it's currently unknown whether phenomena. Blah blah blah. Is it proto / ancient human, time travelers, etc., or some combination or mutation of any or all of these? However, it appears likely. And I'm sorry, guys. Let me just get this.
He says extra dimensional instead of interdimensional, which is interesting because those are two kind of different things. But I
Yeah, and
mean, I
maybe
guess for the
he
layman, it
might
can
mean
mean
here.
the same thing.
And by the way, Lisa, thank you for the advice. I did block her. There's only, if somebody wants to ask that once, that's fine. But leave us alone. I mean, obviously, we're not getting paid from any specific nefarious source. Yeah, I mean, extra dimensional meaning maybe that they're using dimensions, like Eric Davis says. We think they're using wherever they're from, they're using dimensions to get here.
But I mean, that topic is so complicated that could mean like 100 different things, like
Yeah.
just in and of itself.
Yeah, and it's like I never explain other dimensions anyway. So, however, it appears highly likely that the phenomenon per se is not constituted exclusively of members of the current human population. So, it seems like that leaves open the door for some black technology, unless he's talking about proto-human, ancient human, but that's not current human population. And feel free to jump in anytime. In this paper, we'll address the above under the overarching theme ultra-terrestrials in order to develop a template to be matched against data at hand, and that may be procured in the future. Keywords, extraterrestrials, I don't need to talk about keywords. Ultra-terrestrial models, background. As one takes a decades-long view of the unidentified aerial phenomena, UAP, UFO topic, it is easy to become frustrated by what one sees as a lack of robust progress in establishing sure and certain ironclad data points about even the most fundamental of issues. These issues prompt such key questions as follows. Is the phenomenon predominantly nuts and bolts, psychological, or metaphysical, assuming such distinctions can be made? Is the source of the phenomenon, and if you want to jump in on any of that, I mean,
No,
metaphysical.
go ahead and read it. Go ahead and read it, and I'll jump in at the end.
Is the source of the phenomenon predominantly terrestrial, ultra-terrestrial, example, ancient occult group, isolated pre-diluvial high technology, meaning before the flood, I think, stranded ETs / quote-unquote gods, or extraterrestrial, assuming that distinctions between these alternatives are meaningful? Has the phenomenon ramped up in our era, or has it been essentially constant over millennia? Or
I would
oft-times
say
related.
that it has absolutely ramped up, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to jump in, but you told me to.
Jump in.
I think that it has absolutely ramped up in our current era simply because technology has advanced. So we are even more confused.
No, that's definitely what I was thinking as a possibility. You know, it's like it's hard to tell if any of this is our technology and it's ramped up, to figure out why it's ramped up, if it's them or it's us ramping it up. I mean, I don't know. Are oftentimes related topics such as claimed abductions, crop circles, and animal mutilations truly related, or are they separate categories of phenomena, as you were
My
talking about?
God. This is one of those hard things where are we really going to be able to get through this whole paper? Because not everything is related, and not every cattle mutilation is related to the UFO topic. We have seen, even with the NIDS papers, that there were scalpels found under some of these cows that absolutely points back to humans, like doing research. We know the whole downwinding issue from the bombs that were put off, and all of our testing that we did in Nevada that was sent over to Utah. We can't attribute every single cattle mutilation to extraterrestrials.
If you listen, don't listen to Linda Moulton Howe on that. If you listen to Christopher O'Brien, he thinks the majority of cattle mutilations are carried out by some covert human group, but there is a small percentage that are high strangeness that are just even baffling to him. So I'm fine with that. Colin Kelleher has a book called, I think it's called Brain Food, but it talks about how mad cow disease is related to the cattle mutilations, how they're checking the environment. I think that's his leading theory, but there are cases that are totally anomalous. There's one at Skinwalker Ranch where the calf was out in daylight. The rancher was right by. Next thing you know, boom, mutilated. I mean, I guess it could be some covert technology, but there are cases that are very hard to explain. Anyway, let me keep reading. As institutions such as governments truly that are institutions such as governments truly that much more knowledgeable than we are, even if only in certain protected domains, or are they essentially in the same position as we are, give or take some hard data in hand? I hope they're not in the same position as us after 70 years of studying this. That would be really depressing if they don't have some idea of what the heck's going on. Fall asleep, Jess?
Yeah, well, I believe that they know a lot more than what we are privy to. So continue.
Oh, I hope so. And I've made the argument I think there are certain people in our government that know a lot more, and maybe they're in, they're probably
Well,
most likely.
it's beneficial to them to keep us dumb. barefoot and pregnant. You know, if you want to go back to old terms, pretty
And
much
that's
the entire United States, entire population is kept barefoot and pregnant at this moment.
no, and that's one of my favorite things from the 2000 alien autopsy email leak, where Hal or Kit Green, Kit Green says the folks in charge of the secrecy just think of us as not really, you know, they're not worthy of hearing about this information. All they care about is watching football on Sunday, and now it would be reality TV. So I really can't argue with that, as we see with Kim Kardashian with 90 million followers, and the
It's
Johnny
only
Depp
gotten worse.
trial. Yeah, it's getting worse. Johnny Depp and Amber Heard gets how many millions of views in the UFO hearing? Nothing, basically. So yeah, we're
Hell, one
nowhere
of the
close.
people that have been a troll against me for like the past couple of weeks, like 90% of what she tweets out is about the Johnny Depp trial. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? So it's like we have been dumbed down. If you go back to the 1920s, 1930s, certainly there was a certain population of, especially in the United States, a rural population that was kept in the dark. But there was also a scientific community that has grown, but since has been dumbed down as well. It's one of those things that's kind of hard to gauge in what direction we're going. Like if you see the movie Idiocracy, that's a perfect example of where we're headed if people continue to only pay attention to what's popular in the movies and these stars, and not really, they're sort of getting away from the scientific and technology and more educational aspects. Like we're dumb as hell right now, to be honest with you. We're devolving as well as evolving at the same time.
Let me just see what somebody says, because this is my. Somebody said, "Are you saying that Skinwalker Ranch is not reality TV, as in fiction, or do you think it's an actual documentary?" Actual documentary, no. Actual documentaries are shot differently the way that show's shot, because I've worked on documentaries, and you're shooting nonstop all the time, which really sucks as a camera guy. It's a reality show that's kind of docu style. Do I think it's? We're not going to get into this debate. No, I don't think it's fiction. I don't know. I can't say. I'm not there shooting. If anything is produced, probably some stuff is produced, but you know, I've worked on a lot of shows. I would never specifically talk about shows, but I've worked on shows that are very, very produced, very produced. That doesn't seem like that's like that, but I'm going to keep reading. So let's see. Critique. As we critique our position vis-a-vis these issues, three factors stand out as weaknesses that could be addressed by developing new strategies. They are: data gathering is essentially passive. Typically, events are reported and data are gathered and analyzed. This constitutes essentially a reactive as opposed to proactive mode. This is not meant as a pejorative statement. Astrophysicists find themselves in the same situation. Even seemingly proactive movements, such as John Greenwald Jr.'s FOIA government documents search in the public arena, or attempted collection of the detritus of classified programs by some under special protected conditions, simply constitute efforts to cause the government to release data to passive, ever hopeful recipients. Please give us data. The ball is still in someone else's court. And that's hopefully what the congressional language is heading us in a direction where we're getting some of that data. Hopefully, we'll see. Other more proactive measures could be taken, ranging from relatively prosaic example, God, setting up all weather, all sky optical IR monitoring stations, which is basically Galileo. I'm not sure if exactly the same technology, but they're basically going to measure the sky. They're going to look at the sky and try to capture stuff. Relatively prosaic through the more tech-intensive approaches. Example, magnetic disturbance and radio frequency gigahertz detectors, multivariable monitoring suites, exo-archaeological investigations. To the arcane, example, search for evidence of anomalous manipulation of human genetic structure, which is my favorite one, which people will not be able to handle if that really did take place. They messed with our genes and created us, our current form. And stretching to the esoteric, example, remote viewing, telepathic contact. And I tell people I love remote viewing, but the results, when you get them, you can't base anything until you prove that it's accurate. It's just without feedback.
Here's
It's just
here's my
go ahead.
issue with all of that is that we have been doing this from the beginning, and now they're coming out with the Galileo project that's supposed to be new eyes on it. This is not new. NASA has been doing this for a very long time. NASA has all of this data and technology, and we know everything that we're doing already.
Exactly. Somebody told me on the phone like last week to go. We're reinventing the wheel. We already have more than enough data. The problem is we can't get access. We can't get access to it, so we have to do something like Galileo and these other programs for now. Hopefully, at some point in time, they go, "Hey, Avi, yeah, cut it off. We got access to the warehouse that Eric Davis has talked about. Corbell has talked about the alleged warehouse. I don't know if it's Air Force, but where they keep stuff. I don't know if they called it a paper trail warehouse, but if that stuff really exists, yeah, we don't have to waste our time doing something like Galileo. We already have enough evidence that we don't. But in the meantime, I guess,
So why isn't there legislation to release all of that data instead of gather new data?
why wasn't there legislation?
Yeah, why
There
why
is.
is that not
There
part of
is.
it?
There is. That's part of the programs where people worked in these programs.
No,
That would be.
it's not. Look at NASA. NASA is sitting
Oh
here
yeah.
saying, "Hey,
Right.
we're going to take $100,000 for the next year, which is
Right.
basically a single person's salary for the next year to just assess what we need to do and what data we need to collect." It's just, you know what it
So
is? It's kicking the can. Basically, it's putting things in place in order for them to not answer these questions right now. It's for them to kick it down the road for another year.
as long as see the thing with NASA was really interesting. I only listened to the first 15 minutes. I want to listen to because I know you're not as big a fan or not a fan at all of Jim Semivan, but he talked about he goes, it's not just the Air Force and these programs, these black programs. NASA would have their own program too, but the people at NASA would not have access to that program. It's a very small percentage. Eric Davis said 100,000 of the people who have clearances would even have access to those programs. It's a very small amount. So yes, NASA, according to Semivan, would have a program like that. To bring up the controversial Uri Geller, he said he went there and he talked about bodies. He didn't give any details. It's possible. Maybe NASA has bodies if we have such a thing. But yeah, it's going to be up to Congress to see how hard they can push and how much they can do with the Pentagon, because the people in the Pentagon who don't want this out, they're going to try to wait it out until you get somebody in office who doesn't give a crap about UFOs like Gillibrand and Rubio and
Well,
Gallagher.
this is where the term slow drip disclosure comes into play,
Right.
because it's all been orchestrated. It's all been planned out. Okay, first we release this, first we release that. We get people, we basically let them dip their toes into it and eventually wade into it. What are we wading into?
I don't know if there really is a plan to do this. I'm very open to that possibility. I've suggested maybe Lou is the point person, and I think what they're waiting for is the general public to get up to speed, and that's never going to happen. So, as I said on Twitter, I said just rip the Band-Aid off. Maybe they're afraid of panic. Whatever the real story is, it's so scary that people aren't going to be able to handle it. I don't know. I'm totally speculating there. But yeah, I mean, at least, I'm happy that at least it's being talked about. It never anything like this in my lifetime. They're never talking about, black programs with maybe where they're exploiting technology, which, it's encouraging. But I know I
Yeah.
say it all the time. People need to be patient because there's going to be a lot of bumps in the road because there are people that they don't want the story out. They don't want the technology out. Whatever we have, whether you think it's our technology or theirs, they're going to fight tooth and nail. So I don't know how much power. It's going to be a battle to see how much Congress could get them to give up. Because if they
I
say,
know
well, we don't have it, sorry.
a lot of people in the chat are like, just fucking read it already. But there is
Oh,
something in there that I would like to comment on. Luis Elizondo said last year, I want to say around August, September, October, somewhere in that area range, he said, hey, if you're impatient, basically go away, find a hobby for 5 years, and then come back.
yeah, we
So
fought
do
over
you
that.
think? Yeah, we
We
did.
fought over
We
that.
we fight over everything, Joe. And do you think that in the next, okay, so that we're at the almost 4 year mark at this point. So do you think we'll get that at that time frame?
When he said that, I think and I don't think there's a specific time frame, but it was more like, listen, we're not there yet to be talking about, in whether hearings closed or open, bodies and craft. Although I think craft are being discussed now. If you're talking about programs and legacy programs and exploitation, bodies, I don't know. I don't think I don't know. I mean, I would love to say, I don't think we're going to have to wait 5 years. I think next year or 2 years from now, we're going to be talking about those bodies that were supposedly, we discovered a life form in the Cold War. The general that supposedly told that to Tom DeLonge, which Jim Semivanni said, that's possible that happened. He was very careful not to go down the body route. So I don't know. I
Well,
hope so. I didn't
I'm
think
gonna
we'd be where we are right now. No way
I'm
did I
gonna say
think.
something that somebody is gonna
Oh
probably
no.
kick my ass for saying, but according to several sources that I will not name, Elizondo has sort of a gag order or an embargo or something to where he cannot speak to the media. You know how you step back? And he's
Yeah,
like,
but
I'm
didn't
not
he
going to
just
do
do it
any
recently though?
podcasts. I'm not going to do any of this. I'm not going to do any of that. This is all hearsay, what I'm saying.
Yeah, because he
But
just did one.
I was told that he's not going to be able to do anything or respond to anything publicly until maybe October, November. And that's just hearsay. I don't know if it's true.
When
I
did
don't know
you
if it's
hear
a bunch
that?
of horse
What,
shit. I heard
when
that. That's all I'm going
when
to
did you
say.
hear that? Because he just did an interview like a week ago for South American podcast.
Yeah, it was recently that I was told that he is not allowed to speak to the media. Maybe it's a bunch of horse shit. I don't know. I'm not saying, hey, I have inside yada yada. Who knows? All we know is that Elizondo's been taken out of the limelight. Was he taken out because he was being attacked in the media and attacked on Twitter? Was that on his own judgment? Did he do that himself, or was he told not to?
Who knows?
And the thing, we'll see. We'll see. Come October, November. If he jumps into a bunch of podcasts, if that was real or not.
Yeah, we'll see. Somebody says go wait 5 years, and they said I don't get that comment. It's unhelpful because people were getting. People were. It was somebody was criticizing something and complaining. It's like he has said it. I've said it. I mean, people have to have patience. I'm sorry, it's just not going to happen as fast as we want. It's just not. People think, oh, here we go. They're going to show us everything. It's going to happen. No, it never does. It's slow. It's slow. It's slow. So people got to get used to that. And I should keep reading. So by and large, our models / hypotheses are relatively circumscribed, as stated in entry 2. This is page 5 or 6 of 16. My eyes, I need glasses. As stated in entry 2 above, although interested in entry 2 is, maybe it's just that. Although interested parties tend to be proponents of what would appear to be a wide range of hypotheses, parentheses, ranging from it's all psychological, check your DSMV. What is that? What's DSMV? What the
I
heck?
have no idea.
If I would have read it before, but I didn't have time. Anyway,
Yeah,
through
neither of us read this before. Just FYI to everybody listening, we haven't read this before.
and I will put it on my site and then link to all the questions, all the stuff that they reference, which I love putting hot links. But it says although interested parties tend to be proponents of what would appear to be a wide range of hypotheses, interdimensional / time travelers and angels to grays in advanced spacecraft from Zeta Reticuli, there are additional options that, though mentioned in passing in the literature, are not taken very seriously and therefore go relatively unresearched. These include such categories as a hidden community of ETs / quote unquote gods, possibly stranded here. By the way, I have heard the stranded stuck here word.
AKA Jen, AKA look at the book of Enoch and look at the Old Testament.
When I heard it was something related to, it was more related to something magnetic grid wise, but who the hell knows? Somebody
Same
told me
thing.
that privately, and wasn't like a top source of mine. These include such categories as hidden community ETs / gods, possibly stranded here millennia ago, a la Zachariah Sitchin's Earth Chronicles, which I think you read that. I know you read a couple of those books, as I did. Series, isolated remnants of a pre-diluvial high-tech society, the Atlantis myth, or an ancient occult group who happened to stumble on new energy sources and control of gravity, including a post-World War II covert cabal of the military-industrial complex variety. Dolan's
All
breakaway
right,
civilization.
I have to jump in
We consider some of
because
these options in more detail below. Go ahead.
this is something that people who demonize and have villainized Morin, he has actually taken everything that you just read into consideration, and he is doing extensive research on it in regards to plasma, in regards to the fact that there are microbes. He told me that microbes, basically, they're the oldest form of anything living on our Earth, and may tie in to everything that you just stated from this paper that Hal Puthoff wrote. And you have somebody that's looking into this, and he's been basically excommunicated from the community and saying that he's a skeptic. Oh, he's this, he's that. He's one of
No,
our brightest minds. Okay,
It's not
he is
about. It's
one
not.
of our brightest minds, and he's been looking into this, and he has told me theories that makes so much sense. And that's one of the reasons why I was so pissed off that he was just kicked out. People should listen to what he's saying right now, regardless of whatever fucking accounts he had 4 years ago. He is actually doing wonderful work in everything that Hal Puthoff just said in this paper. So continue.
Yeah. I don't want to go down that road right now, because if we do, it will never get back to this paper. I have issues with what you said, but let me keep reading. Somebody, by the way, the DSM-V is, and Danny Silva texted me too. It's the diagnostic and statistical manual of mental disorders. Basically, it's all in your head. You're crazy, which we heard for so long, and still I'm sure some people still think that. Why the heck isn't it not moving? There we go. So, analysis, speculation, not forensics, constitutes the present core modus operandi. As the various hypotheses are generated and pursued, hypothesis generation, and data are gathered, considerable intellectual effort goes into attempting a fit between the two, hypothesis testing. This is certainly a healthy activity, deriving as it does from the instinctive and productive human urge to reduce ambiguity in interpreting one's surroundings. However, this approach could profit by incorporating elements of a more forensic gumshoe style, as in criminalistics and intelligence work. We need all of those people to figure this out. The very fact that so many hypotheses remain on the table regarding the source of the phenomenon clearly indicates that forensic work to date has been inadequate to even eliminate certain options. Hypotheses elimination. All three forms of hypothesis handling are required. Yeah, well, I don't know when he wrote this paper exactly, but nobody is interested in the science world as far as, a large percentage of scientists. So that until that changes, I don't think we're going to make progress in figuring this out, unless somebody has figured it out partially behind the scenes. In the black programs. Strategy for forward motion. Given the tenor of the above remarks, the following recommendations are offered as proactive measures to make headway. Specifically, it would behoove us to set aside our tentativeness about any given hypothesis, place it on the table and almost certainly true, and go for it with an aggressive forensic mindset. Consider the following disparate hypothetical examples of the type outlined in entry 2 in the abstract. The extraterrestrial hypothesis. In this scenario, crash/retrievals of nuts and bolts alien hardware have occurred, the detritus of which has been distributed in the U.S. to corporate America. The Colonel Corso scenario. Setting aside the specific claims of Corso, if such is the case, certain telltale signatures should emerge under scrutiny. Moreover, some evidence indicates this could be the case. These would include a certain level of relatively low profile, possibly statesman influenced integrated investment/control of a select set of global multinational corporations, which I think DeLong has written about in his fiction books, with convergent interlocking technology developments, example, aerospace and electronics corporations.
All right, I think that we need to stop for just a second because you're skipping over a lot of things. He just indicated that we have made possible advancements in technology, and going back to I mean, he's like pretty much covering every hypothesis in this paper as far as what I can see.
Right.
So he's not like discrediting anything. So he's basically saying, hey, all of you guys out there in UFO Twitter who are fighting, who are cutting each other up, who are going at it tooth and nail, like, consider everything, because we haven't eliminated anything yet.
No, in his lecture he did in Virginia, he even said, he goes, we don't see evidence that we've cracked gravity or anything like that. He goes, but we can't rule it out. Cannot possibly rule it out. You would think we would see some signs of it, but cannot rule it out. And I don't care if people have a problem with that. I mean, I don't have it high on the list. I just don't know. I mean, I'm totally open to it. And a lot of people get upset about that. But so, I mean, what are you going to do? I mean, like you said, some people do want it to be aliens. I just want it to be whatever it is. I mean, it's interesting, definitely, if there's something non-human here, which I do think is happening. But what else? Anything else that jumped out there?
No, he's just basically covering every angle, which I support. And, you know, I've been critical of how Puthoff on certain aspects. Like, he's one of those names that is absolutely a core person. If you are interested in UFOs, you need to research Hal Puthoff and everything that he has done for decades. I mean, he is basically why we're talking right now. So go back and look him up and actually do some research on him. And so far, I don't have anything critical of the paper. He's covering everything. So go ahead.
Yeah, he's one of the few scientists, and I've told you this before. Other people say, why is it the same people over and over? It's because not a lot of people are willing to put their reputation on the line and talk about this stuff, especially openly. I mean, he was so instrumental in the remote viewing program coming together. Hopefully in the next few years, it's just a waterfall, just a tidal wave of scientists saying, you know what? Because Gary Nolan says there are people coming to him saying, you know, I'm interested in this now. Let's talk about it. If that keeps happening, that's going to be great. If biological specimens have been retrieved, the development of unusual lines of biological/genetic inquiry by highly qualified professionals whose career path would seem to diverge suddenly from what might have been extrapolated. Man, I'm getting tired. I'm sorry.
And this is where
Extrapolated.
Richard Doty comes into play, because he is constantly saying, and he said even recently in podcasts, that there was an alien from Area 51 that escaped, and he was
J-Rod.
shot and killed. Yeah, well, I'm not sure if it was J-Rod, but he was.
Oh, really?
There was an ET biological entity that was at Area 51 that escaped, that was killed, and he was buried under a. He said he was buried under a road at Area 51, which makes absolutely no fucking sense to me whatsoever. But it's one of those things that you see people who have been part of this community, sowing discord and counterintelligence from like the beginning, where they haven't let up. Even after Richard Doty come out saying, hey, I did this to Benowitz, and I feel so terribly sorry for that, he is still saying these stories. So are they stories? Are they real? I don't think anybody can say anything other than, you know, do you not think that Congress would know by now if that were true?
Yeah, supposedly he's had meetings in Congress, but like you said, I said, other people have said, put Doty under oath for, you know, if he lies and gets caught making up stuff, you know, prosecuting for. The problem is, you know, prosecuting for perjury, but the problem is, it's really, if he tells a story, how do you prove it's not true? It's like
Well,
it's so hard to prove.
if you're paid to do that by the United States government, and part of your oath is to not ever disclose that under any circumstance, even under oath, then of course he's still going to continue to say the same things. He could go in front of Congress and say the same stories, if that's his job and he has some sort of special pass to do so. It doesn't matter if Richard Doty or any other counterintelligence is under oath, because it's to protect our national security. And that's what we have always relied on, is national security. It's one of those catch-22s.
I'm not sure if it gives them the option just to lie to Congress. I don't think they have.
It kind of does, actually, if you go back and look.
Do you know?
It kind
I
of
mean,
gives him
you may
the
be right, but
pass
are
to
there
lie to
examples of that?
anybody.
Are there examples
What?
of people who have lied to Congress and later on said, "Yeah, I was allowed because this
I mean,
regulation
how
said
many
I"?
people have come before Congress to talk about aliens? Like, I'm sure that there are other examples. Like, look at the JFK thing. I mean, nobody can actually come out, and if they're told by certain facets of our government that, hey, if you do this under any circumstance, even to Congress, you will be prosecuted. Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those catch 22s, like I said, like, there's no way out of it. Like, somebody could sit here in your face, even up to the president. Hell, we know the presidents have been kept out of this. We know that so many, look at Carter, look at Clinton. So many presidents have looked into this and they still have not been granted access to everything that's going on. That's for a reason. And that's one of the things that we have that's kind of messed up in the United States government and our laws. Like, there's no way to pull that out.
Yeah, that's why and by the way, I don't know if that's the real Richard Doty on Twitter. I will find out. I mean, I've communicated with Doty. I've met him. I haven't really ever used him as a source for anything, although I was accused of that. But that was the question I asked. I called into Will Miller being interviewed in 2000. Will, how do we get access to these programs? 22 years later, we still don't have access. At least we have Congress trying. Whether or not they'll succeed, I don't know. Yeah,
They can try tooth and nail, but they're never going to get access to something that we will not grant them access to. Even if the Wilson Davis documents are 100% real, if we want to hide that, that's our prerogative under national security. We have that right. It's never going to come out. And that's one of those things that it's so terribly difficult.
I need Michael Vida to weigh in. We'll do a show with Michael on where you know more about certain things that I don't know the legalities of that, but we'll get back to that with him. Let me keep reading because my leg is falling asleep sitting like this. If biological specimens have been retrieved, the development of unusual lines of biological genetic inquiry by highly qualified professionals whose career path would seem to diverge suddenly from what might have been extrapolated from their earlier work, example, accelerated research into retroviruses, sudden initiation in the late 40s or early 50s without clear precedents, and in unknown UFO-related research institutes, example, Battelle, of concentrated development of new high-strength, high-temperature, low-density intermetallic alloys funded by nearby government facilities such as Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, example, nitinol. So basically he's saying these would be hints that we had some sort of breakthrough with genetics on something new or something metallic from some craft. Maybe it would bleed into this amazing technology. You would start seeing that. You'd see maybe the accelerated development of geopolitical alliances, space weaponry, etc. According to DeLong.
Eugenics back to the Nazis. That's all I'm going to say.
All right. DeLong has talked about how we've worked with our adversaries to work on this problem, and I've heard that from somebody else before. So it would make sense if we really felt it was a threat to work with our adversaries to try to figure out what the heck is going on and maybe stop them. And I know a lot of people think that's a threat narrative. I don't know what's going on. Maybe it's not a threat. I have no idea. The accelerated development of geopolitical alliances, space weaponry, etc., for reasons not wholly interpretable in terms of national interest agendas, example, Star Wars, SDI, U.S. Space Force, evidence for covert manipulation of the UFO ET theme in the public sector by governmental entities, example, CIA's 1953 Robertson's panel, where they basically said, let's make UFO people not credible anymore. Make sure that the reasoning, one reason, I won't get into the whole thing. The reasoning it was going to clog up our channels of communication, which Semivan said was a very, very valid concern at the time, although he doesn't agree with a lot of what they did. Evidence for generally sub-rosa, highly classified programs addressing the UAP issue, example, as in the recently revealed OSAP ATIP programs, which hardly anybody knew about. What other programs are there? Privatized access to space, example by enterprises such as SpaceX, Bigelow Aerospace, Blue Origin, or threats to national international security, example, the nation state terrorism, might serve to stimulate the surfacing of certain technological developments, materials, at an accelerated rate, and so on. I'm not so sure about that.
Can I talk about it?
Yeah, go ahead. I don't know if we break out that technology unless we absolutely had to. That's what Michael Vai thinks. If we have the technology, and he thinks we do, we're not gonna use it unless
especially
we
look at Steve Justice. Look at TTSA. TTSA brought Steve Justice, who left a very high profile position at Lockheed Martin and Skunk Works to come work at TTSA. After this, the entire narrative has been unfair bidding practices. Okay, there are contractors, private contractors trying to bring technology out. We can't get that technology out because it's locked. We have hidden it. The government doesn't, I mean, certain assets of the government have access to it, but there are other private contractors who want the same technology out. That's the whole thing that's what we're dealing with now, in my opinion.
Allegedly, you gotta say allegedly though.
Well, I mean, allegedly, Luis Elizondo and Danny Sheehan and so on and so forth. If you're questioning me, you're questioning them, because they've said this over and over again. There are unfair bidding practices where these guys have been given this technology. And we know that the government, they discover something and they'll hand it off to certain contractors, and they'll say, hey, this is what we have. This is where the compartmentalization comes into play. They'll say, hey, please take this, develop it. Let us know what you know about it, because they're more well equipped. They're financially equipped. They have people that they have hired and put into play that our government does not. That's why we.
Who are you talking about? Are you
no,
saying...
I'm saying that's why, let me finish. That's why we outsource these things to private contractors, because they are better at it than the United States government is. So when Tom DeLonge, when Luis Elizondo, when TTSA and everybody turned over metamaterials to the United States Army under the, there's the whole CRADA thing that goes along with it. Who did they give that to study it and develop it?
The Army.
Okay, exactly. That's been done over and over and over again.
Though? Do you know why they gave it up to somebody?
But listen to me. They have done that over and over and over again. That wasn't the first time. We have a crash retrieval program in place, not only for our technology, but if we captured something from another government or another country, say we captured some Chinese technology, we will outsource it to these contractors. Okay, these contractors' development, they have all access to everything that they develop and back engineer. Okay, other contractors want access to what those guys did. There's no way to pull that out. There's no way to legally pull that out. Well, but by using the UFO,
Lou's talking about UFO technology when he talks about it, just like Eric David talks about.
He is using UFO technology as a crash retrieval type program, unfair bidding practices, but it's not all extraterrestrial technology. There are other technology that is embedded within this that we want access to, that other contractors want access to. That's the main thing. That's the main issue behind the disclosure process, everything that's going on now. UFO disclosure, we may get some stuff about aliens in the process.
It's an interesting theory.
No, I mean, it's a theory, but it's also a theory that's been stated over and over again, especially by Luis Elizondo. If you believe him and you believe what he's saying.
Disclosure is about. He does not say that's what disclosure is about.
He's saying that there are unfair bidding practices because
he does
contractors
bring that up. That's not the major reason for disclosure. If you listen to his 3-hour interviews, it's a lot more deeper than that. I mean, we're talking about us as a species.
What does he say? He's focusing on UFOs, but he's saying that certain contractors have been given access to technology that we have recovered. Okay,
that's small part of his interviews, though, Jess. I mean, his interviews when he does 3 hours. If you listen to him, this is so much more than just some aerospace company having an
look
unfair
at his
advantage.
lawyer.
We got to
Look at
get
his
back to the
attorney.
article. We got to get back to the article. I can't do this all night.
You want to get back to the article, but this is the main part of the article, Joe. This is the main part of everything that's going on. Even his attorney, who is going to bat for him, has said this is what it's all about. This is all about technology.
Him and Lou
If
differ
it's-
on some of that stuff.
Well, if it's UFO technology, if it's human technology, it's all about the technology.
I was going to say
Go
something.
ahead.
Somebody asked, "Who is this woman? Who is this woman?" And by the way, this is Jessica, and she is on Twitter. That's her handle.
If I said yo mama, would that be inappropriate?
You've already been inappropriate. I'm probably gonna not be able to add, I'm not gonna get any ads on this because you used the F-bomb so many times, but I think I might.
No, I haven't. Like maybe 2 or 3. Go ahead.
It only takes one. I'm just trying to see anybody. Somebody got bored that we were talking too much. Sorry. I don't have a co-host very often, but I will a lot more. Valet told me on multiple occasions he came to the same conclusion about Linda Moulton House sample. That's her arts parts thing. Sorry.
So we're talking about technology, but I can't talk about technology. What the hell, Joe?
You can talk
Some
about whatever
bullshit.
you want. I just want to go through the paper. We can come back to this. Just might take a note.
All right, go ahead. Finish it.
We're at 8 of 16. So we got a long way to go, and I am not comfortable. Holy mackerel.
Straighten your legs out and finish it. I'll be quiet.
The isolated humans hypothesis, an isolated high-tech closed community of humans with somewhat advanced scientific knowledge, exists apart from the known culture. Telltale signatures might include continuing observation of technology only somewhat in advance of public knowledge. Example, the 1897 airships, which John Keel in Operation Trojan Horse does a real excellent job of covering the airship mystery of the late 1800s. Unaccounted for missing financial assets and industrial grade resources, possibly including individuals' apparent covert misdirection of society in the absence of real evidence to accept the likelihood of ET presence, the relative lack of evidence of extremely advanced sophistication of hardware, i.e. hardware clearly beyond present day design and manufacture, even conceptually. The stranded or colonized ET gods hypothesis. Telltale signatures might include evidence in myth for high-tech interpretation of claimed devices beyond human capability of the era to manufacture, e.g., example, nuclear-powered, algae production, manna machine in biblical times, hard evidence for isolated mountain bases, detectable by satellite signatures of fast walker or UCT, uncorrelated target, flight paths or anomalous undersea activity or bases detectable by distributed underwater monitoring systems. And he talks about mountain bases. There's been remote viewing on some alleged ET bases, but that was never proven. Feedback to even show that was legitimate. And if they did get feedback, they wouldn't have told us. What?
See, there are so many things that I could add to that, but I've been told to shut up in the chat, so I will. Go ahead.
We can just take notes, just mark some notes down, and we can go back and if people, once we get to we talk a little bit more after, they can leave if they want. Flight paths or anomalous undersea activity or bases detectable by distributed underwater monitoring systems, covert elite group exercising occult/religious influence in society, evidence for buried high-tech artifacts or locales with unusual signature radiation characteristics here or off planet, etc. Go ahead, jump in. I'm sorry if people don't like it. I don't want to just read the thing straight through without comment, because if Jessica wasn't here, I would be doing the same thing, but I would probably be talking a lot less because I don't know as much as she does on a lot of stuff. So jump in, and what do you want? What did you want to say? We're at 9 of 16. Hello?
No, at this point, yeah, I'm sorry. At this point, just keep on reading. We'll go back to it at the end.
Okay. Another theory, the interdimensional or time travelers hypothesis, which is my favorite, gaining access to our space-time continuum. Telltale signs might take the form of Fortean phenomena of instant appearance / disappearance of beings, In a reverse process, humans experience portal access to alternate realities, appearance of beings out of sync in dress, mannerism, or language, or technology similarly undecipherable, financial transaction timeline, or other futures oriented activity indicative of advanced foreknowledge, evidence for teleportation of individuals or material over geophysical distances, appearance of humanoids in conformance with predicted genetic evolution of present day Homo sapiens, etc. Obviously, in the above examples, we have a helter-skelter montage of elements from much of the mythology of claimed UFO experience. And yeah, I know people are critical of this paper, saying it's throwing everything at the kitchen sink, and I understand the criticism because it is throwing everything at the kitchen sink. And I hopefully they've narrowed some of this down to something.
Well, hell, like at this point, everything needs to be thrown. If the government doesn't know, which
Right.
is from how Puthoff, is connected as he is, if he's writing this paper, then that truly means the government absolutely has no freaking clue what's going on still, and they're entertaining all of this. Other than maybe he's putting out a puff piece.
I'm not sure if that's true or not, because I don't think he has. I mean, he may have the same type of information that Eric Davis described, where you talk to people in these other programs, but they'll only give you certain information unless you can get read in. Then you'll get the full story. So he may not have the full story. I mean, Kit Green talked about he was so close to getting alleged access to the alleged top UFO program, and then it didn't happen on several occasions. So it either doesn't exist, or for some reason they don't like Kit Green. He was eating peanuts in the lobby, and he wasn't supposed to. And they said, you know what, Dr. Green, we love those peanuts. You ate the last one. No access for you. So I don't know what happened. Where I consider we need to go with it is this: to shift away from a strategy that relies solely on further content analysis towards what intelligence world calls traffic analysis. That is to first order independent of contact. That is content, not contact. That is, while it's not easy, this does not read well for me. I don't know about you. That is, while not eschewing the present strategies in place, we incorporate into our studies in as aggressive and proactive a way as we can muster more forensic work to expand our playing field and extract from the data and its surrounds more of the patterns and networks that appear to yoke the data together, rather than just attending to the data itself. Since this takes such hard work and such a commitment of effort in new arenas of investigation, it probably also means, as suggested above, being willing to press a given hypothesis to the limit, even though it may be the wrong one, so that our understanding of the range of possibilities to which we keep our minds open does not act to disperse our focused activity. Jump in if you want. And this would be good for people new to the subject, just talking about all the different possibilities and leaving them on the table. Hopefully they have more knowledge of this, but yeah, let's say this is really the top, they're still stuck on this. I don't think that's the case, but if it is, I'm not going to be alive when we figure this out. There's no way.
There's absolutely no way that I'll be alive either. I have researched and looked into Hal Puthoff for many, many years. I've read all of his books, and he came out with a movie with Russell Targ years ago, and several books afterwards. He has been intertwined in the parapsychology aspect of the phenomenon since what was it, the 60s, 70s, something like that?
Early 70s, I think.
Yeah. It's probably one of the most fascinating topics that we can look at. Probably also one of the most scariest topics. It's way more scary if something has been on Earth from the beginning and is now interacting with us and interacting with our minds and messing with us, opposed to an extraterrestrial entity visiting from another solar system and observing us. Like, it's one of those things where both things could possibly be happening. I would honestly think that the Hal Puthoff side is a little bit more terrifying. And I know he's gotten a lot of grief lately because people have brought up his interest in certain technology and his certain endeavors that have fallen through. But because he's been looking into something that's fallen through and was not necessarily, he was basically played on a couple of occasions,
The Firmage
and
thing
he's
is
been,
one of them.
yeah, because of that, he's been villainized, but he's always been one of my top five people of interest in this entire topic.
Yeah, I mean, when I first got into remote viewing in the mid '90s, you know, his right away, his name came up, and I've communicated with him a little bit. I would love to interview him. I'm not sure how open he is to doing interviews. He does a lecture every now and then, which I have a couple of them transcribed. And Eric Davis, I mean, he gave Eric a job at Earth Tech, and you know, Eric is just he just beams when he talks about Hal Davis. He's, I mean, appreciative to be working as a, you know, if you're astrophysicist, being able to work on warp, all that stuff that a lot of places won't let you work on. And then UFOs, obviously.
He's been a little bit villainized because of some of the avenues that he has gone down, including Scientology, which I know that's been brought up in the past, and actually brought up more recently again. Like, you even mentioned to me, like, some of these topics that have been put to bed have been brought up again. And I mean, it's one of those things that people are going to do when they're going down the research of this certain person. They're going to look at them from the beginning. And Scientology, I think Hal Puthoff said that he was into, and he made it all the way to the end, which is a little bit surprising considering the amount of money and time that you have to invest into it. But did he eventually leave it?
He left it. There's a paper out there, and he talks about it. I think he was promoting the, I don't know what that device is where it gets you all clear. I forget what it was, but in the end, he said he realized it was bogus. He made a mistake, and he got out.
Yeah.
And there are people when people talk about stuff, and they say he did this and that. And I remember Eric Davis jumping in on Facebook and saying that's not true. That's not accurate. And there's this long thing telling people what happened.
I can't remember the name of the device where they hold both hands on this type of thing that connects them to read some type of body energy
E-meter.
or neurological e-meter. Yes, the e-meter.
Thanks, Tupa.
Yeah, but after that, what is Hal Puthoff these days? Does he claim a religion? Does he claim any type of belief system?
I don't think so. No, nobody's ever asked him about that. That would be a good question to ask him. I'd be curious. I mean, I don't really care, but I would be curious if he has any ideas of what on that subject,
Well, we know how Mormonism is tied into this subject. And we could do a whole other space, podcast or whatever you want to do on it. But Mormonism is deeply tied to this. Do you think that he is involved in that in any sense?
I don't think so, but you have to ask him. I don't know. Ask him,
All right.
Jess. Call him.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just wanted to jump in there since you asked me.
I was going to say. All right, let me get to ultra-terrestrials. That's one of my favorites, that it's something on this planet that's been here. As a focused example of broadening the scope of our investigation, let us consider the ultra-terrestrial hypothesis as defined above. Example: ancient occult group, isolated pre-diluvial high-tech society, stranded ETs gods, i.e. sequestered terrestrial cultures, examples 2 and 3, existing alongside us in distinct stealth, which would be pretty cool if they're here. We just can't see them and we don't have the technology, or maybe we're close to being able to see them with our technology upgrade, whatever the next one is. First, what are possible signatures of an ultra-terrestrial as opposed to extraterrestrial presence? Good question. How would you tell the difference? Density of sightings over decades, if not centuries. And that's what John Keel came to the conclusion. John Keel's like, there's no way this could be extraterrestrial. There's just too many sightings. It's got to be something based here. Density of sightings over decades, if not centuries, potentially indicative of a present time local as opposed to extraterrestrial source. In other words, that the UAP phenomenon is so ubiquitous as to argue against the simple model of an occasionally visiting extraterrestrial explorer. Recent since World War II, recent claimed focused messaging regarding elimination of nuclear technologies and concern regarding environmental degradation are would-be reasonable themes for a co-located but isolated terrestrial located society. In other words, since they share the planet with us, they're like, get rid of your nukes, you're destroying our planet too. And they may consider it their planet above us and may not really consider us very highly, who knows. Via subterfuge and disinformation, stealthily injected proliferating emphasis on the ET theme. In other words, trying to trick us, which I think I stole that from John Keel when I first read this, you know, for whatever reason, trying to trick us on the ET theme as misdirection to prevent exposure of local terrestrial habitation, as in theater, a la Vallee's Messengers of Deception. Basically, they don't want to be discovered, so they do whatever they can to make us think they're coming from out there. Meanwhile, they're here, and we're not looking here because we're looking in, you know, into deep space for this other civilization coming here, and meanwhile they're right around us all the time. Although how long could that deception work, where we'd obviously say, you know what, unless they're really that advanced, where they're just so good at it, they're able to mimic what it would look like for an extraterrestrial race to come here. But then
From the beginning up until now, like, we're just now learning this. Like, you think that humans are evolved to a certain extent. We're babies, basically. We're just now learning what they're capable of, and we're now attributing different types of science to whatever it is that's surrounding us. Like, you go back to the beginning, like these things have been recorded all throughout history in ancient texts. If you want to talk about ultra-terrestrials, it goes back to where he's talking about the djinn. When he's talking about ultra-terrestrials, he's basically attributing that to the djinn and what he's read in ancient text. There's so many things that we are just still unaware of, that we are just now growing into the ability to understand it.
I lost my place when he's talking about I just think if like us putting aside the djinn, if it's something here that tries to make us think they're coming from from another planet, as far as I know, and it was on a Facebook page, and I've talked about this before, it's nothing nefarious. It's just certain Facebook pages are very careful about what information you share on Twitter, because the people in the group are sharing stuff privately and they don't want it plastered everywhere else. But a certain astrophysicist talked about how there is no evidence that whatever this is coming from beyond the orbit of the moon. There's no deep space evidence where it's coming from a deep, something so far away. He goes, if that evidence does exist, this person says, I haven't seen it. Maybe it exists in a black program, but I haven't seen it.
But look at the mythology of the djinn. They're only allowed to go with out of our planet to a certain location. They're not allowed to travel farther than basically our solar system and our direct vicinity. So everything that he's saying, everything that you're just saying right now, like if you go back and actually look at the mythology, it lines up with some type of ultra-terrestrial or crypto-terrestrial technology or being.
As opposed to like a physical being?
As opposed to something extraterrestrial that's visiting from another solar system. Take Avi Loeb and his Oumuamua hypothesis, like something that's traveling like within our universe. Like if you go back and look at the mythology, they're not allowed to, the djinn are not allowed to travel outside of our solar system, but other things are allowed to travel within our solar system. That's why I believe that it could be a combination of things that we're experiencing that could be attributed to multiple different types of beings. Like there could be crypto-terrestrials, and there could also be extraterrestrials that are observing and analyzing those crypto-terrestrials.
And Dave Altman says, where's the traffic if it's from space? Well, I mean, that assumes they're coming directly from space. Maybe they're using a wormhole where they pop up somewhere, and how that would even work. If it's the same place they would pop up every time, would it be a hotspot like Skinwalker? I don't know. Yeah, you would
Well,
think if it's just direct travel, we would have all the evidence in the world we would need from that.
well,
As far as
again, if you go back and look at the mythology, the crypto-terrestrials, especially in regards to the djinn, since Hal Puthoff brought it up, and I hate to beat a dead horse, but he brought it up in this paper specifically. There are 3 types. One of those types are bound and they are constricted to a certain location. Multiple locations on this earth, they may be able to leave for a certain period of time, but they have to go back to that one fixed location. So if Skinwalker Ranch is a hotspot for whatever that is, it would make sense that they would be able to come out, be this type of trickster being, be able to attach themselves to a human, be able to mess with that human for a period of time, and then go back to their fixed location, i.e., Skinwalker Ranch.
And that's, a lot of people cannot handle that woo, but I love it. And if you read John Keel's, I told you about this, a part of John Keel's Operation Trojan Horse, where he talks about one of his theories where the ultra-terrestrials are able to possess people and make them do stuff like commit murders. I really want to pull that audio up. It's a really interesting theory. If that's the case, yeah, most people will be able to handle that, right? Sarcasm. Yeah, your knowledge of the djinn is impressive, and I don't know any of that stuff, and I will have to read up on it, and you'll have to
It's very
educate me.
fascinating, man. Like, I've looked at so many different facets and so many different types of beings and mythology all around the world in different cultures. But I mean, it all ties back to the Abrahamic religions, which are multiple. You got the Quran, you got the Bible, you got so many different things that are tied to it. That's basically like where we began civilization as we know it. And like, you go back to Mesopotamia, go back to just basically anything that you can find. It all ties into this mythological creature called the djinn. I don't know if that's true. Maybe it's a big, gigantic story, but it fits. It fits the bill. Continue.
It's a Islamic LARP, right? Is it Islamic? Is where the jinn is
What?
in the Quran?
But yeah, but where do you say LARP? Because it's not only
No,
in Islam. It's like,
I'm being sarcastic when you said you don't know if it's true, and you said something. I was whatever. I'm tired.
okay, you go back to the Bible. Okay, you go back to the Christian religion. You go back to even into the Mormon religion. They speak about the angel Gabriel, and that was spoke about in the Bible. Okay, Gabriel was allegedly a jinn that went up and came back, and the Mormons believe that Gabriel was Noah. They believe that he was the person responsible for saving humanity while God at the time completely wiped out the jinn for corrupting humans. I mean, it's a wonderful story. I don't know if it's true. I think it's fascinating.
I love that stuff.
I think it's something to look at.
Yeah, I love
We
that
don't
stuff.
know to this day. We still don't have answers. So I think mythology could possibly, direct us in some areas.
I think there's a lot of truth in the mythological stories, which I won't get into now, about cataclysms on this planet and cyclical cataclysms, but another day. Interactions with humanoid genotype ranging from modern humans to creatures, including sightings of little people over the centuries, encounters with non-humans that haunt our folklore, let alone genetically engineered biological robots or drones, all variants within the lexicon of alternative forms of the human genome. Seeming emphasis on reproduction, abductions. Example, harvesting of sperm and ova. I'll bring up something a friend told me. They said that their abduction experiences stopped when they had a vasectomy. I had never heard that before, but it would make sense if that's really going on and they're after sperm. You have your vasectomy and they're like, we don't need you anymore. harvesting of sperm and ova from certain genetic lines, let alone hybridization, could bespeak outreach towards genetic diversity for a relatively inbred, local, isolated society on the wane and suffering from a potentially debilitating genetic syndrome. So they're using us to help their situation, whatever it is. They're having problems, which we've heard that before. I never heard it in a ultra-terrestrial localized situation. I've heard it with the Greys, but the Greys could be ultra-terrestrials or representations of the ultra-terrestrials, really, AI, whatever. I've called it a proxy. It's not really them. It's not really it's not really the intelligence. It represents the intelligence, or does its biting, not biting. Does the work of the intelligence. Observation of vehicles not that advanced, example, comprehensible as opposed to magical, even if nonetheless well in advance of our own. Use of telepathic information transfer only marginally ahead of present-day technical and neurobiological advances in the public domain. So they're just slightly ahead of us, but enough where it's impressive. It's not the right word, but reports of cave-like or undersea destinations during claimed abductions. So in other words, they're taking him somewhere that's not another planet. It's underwater or in a cave. Given the need for secrecy concerning the reality of all of the above on the part of ultra-terrestrials, as co-located denizens of our planet, while nonetheless being subject to a certain level of codependence, the inscrutable nature of the interactions would not be an unexpected outcome. Second, under the assumption of compelling evidence for the above, it would be critical to discern the motivations of the ultra-terrestrials to maintain such a secret existence. Of possible utmost concern to them could be an overarching fear of exploitation, even annihilation due to vulnerabilities, despite possessing certain levels of technological superiority. And I think Mactoonies, as somebody mentioned in his book, I think it's Crypto-Terrestrials, which I have, they may be vulnerable to us. That's why they hide, and that's why they misdirect. It's not something nefarious. It's something for self-preservation. So they might have just even though they've possessed certain levels of technological superiority or fear of assimilation and consequent loss of culture, which happens on this planet when an advanced culture encounters a less advanced culture. Loss of culture, religion, customs, uncontrolled genetic mingling, i.e. culture shock, fear of human diseases, concern for consequences to the terrestrial human population. So they'd be worried about us too, with its attendant reciprocal effects on their own culture. We'd both be screwing each other over. Potential disruption of resource gathering, if that's what they're doing, including benefits derived from stealthy interactions with and possibly manipulating certain aspects of the human terrestrial society. That's the most interesting part of this paper to me, always has been. It's interesting. It's not scary to me. A lot of people would be devastated if that turned out to be true. Third, what might be the consequences of humanity of disclosure of an ultra-terrestrial group as compared to what we talked about earlier, compared to with that of extraterrestrial visitation? What would be the reaction of the human population versus one and the other? Clearly, the devil, and we're at 14 of 16. Clearly, the devil is in the details, but one could speculate that former is ultra-terrestrials, be more dire than the latter, extraterrestrials, considering that they had been here amongst us, perhaps in very personal ways. Yeah, what if they can mimic us and look like us and hang out in a supermarket in LA like Ingo Swann claimed in his book Penetration? In contrast, ET visitation, in all probability, being more foreign and inscrutable, could be safer. Such topics constitute interesting material for sociological research. Imagine studying this in school 10 years from now. For more detailed discussion of what I have called here the ultra-terrestrial hypothesis, I recommend The Crypto-Terrestrials by Mactoonies, which I mentioned. Somebody else mentioned in the chat. He died early of cancer, which really sucks. He really was able to explain his... you can find on YouTube some of his lectures or his interviews, not lectures, I don't think. Are there any hints in the UAP literature that you want to jump in on any of that, Jess? You're muted. All right.
Hey, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Keep going.
You want to? All right.
I could, but I won't. Just keep going.
All right. Are there any hints? And that's my favorite thing. And if people have the book, you want to get that book, Crypto-Terrestrials, and you'll find his interviews. He's a really sharp guy. It sucks that he died young of cancer. Are there any hints in the UAP literature that there is evidence that the ultra-terrestrial scenario outlined above may have some validity? Author Nick Redfern, in his book The NASA Conspiracies, which was mentioned earlier, asserts that there is. His interview of an ex-NASA Gemini contractor led to the claim that there was evidence of a small band of individuals, and I've never heard this, so this is really cool to hear this. I don't know if it's true. There's evidence of a small band of individuals who were not aliens from some distant star system at all, but supposedly represented the last vestiges of a very ancient terrestrial race of beings that thousands of years ago had an advanced and isolated civilization that was responsible for the legends of Atlantis and similar stories. I'll have to pull up my Eric Davis quote on Coast to Coast when he was talking about Atlantis, and George Knapp had to jump in, and he said, before you go any further, this is just a theory, Eric, right? He's like, yeah, it's just a theory. Legends of Atlantis and similar stories, but who were forced by circumstances to retreat into remote sequestered locales for survival. In other words, mountains and seabed. At present, and that makes a lot of sense, at present,
they were forced into those locations. If you go back to ancient texts, especially the Book of Enoch, which I know has been kind of basically hidden from all of humanity, they were forced into those locations.
Forced why?
Because they were corrupting humanity.
Oh, we're easily corruptible, so.
Oh yeah, we are. Go ahead.
There's some good questions in the chat, but not related to this right now. I want to get to. Remind me about who's in the saucers. At present, they were primarily concerned about nuclear war and degradation of the environment, and this has led to some degree of attempting to influence our culture, which would make sense if that's you hear about the people getting the message about you're destroying your environment. However, they felt it had to be carried out under the and supposedly being seen around nuclear missile sites. However, they felt it had to be carried out under the ruse that they were from distant star systems, deception, to protect what they felt to be their vulnerable position despite their advanced technology. Which would be really interesting if that's the case. Sorry guys, we had to try to pretend we were ET because we just could not trust you to not try to destroy us because you're a warring monkey-like people. That's what I think. What is Nolan says? Monkeys with tools? I don't know what he says. Something like that.
We are talking monkeys, and I use that on occasion. That's all we are, talking monkeys. And I'll add something else at the end. Go ahead.
Okay. Although the ultra-terrestrial hypothesis, I should have had you read some of this. Although the ultra-terrestrial hypothesis scenario considered, this is next to last page, considers an expansion of the model to include other than the simple extraterrestrial hypothesis, the predicted observable consequences of the two options are quite parallel. For our purposes here, careful consideration of the data obtained along the way are to be matched against templates for the two major options, ultra-terrestrial or extraterrestrial, keeping in mind that it might be both and rather than either or. Yeah, it could be both. Definitely could be both. And then he gives all of his sources: Wonders in the Sky, which I have, all back in Valet, Greenwald's Black Vault, which I have the book, Pasulka, Sitchin, Dolan, Zabel, Corso, Blumenthal, Cooper, the article in the New York Times, Lukatsky, Skinwalkers. So this is updated if it wasn't written recent, because supposedly he wrote it years ago. Masters talking about time travelers, Valet, Deception, Messengers, McTooney, Redfern. That's it. That is it. Oh my.
Oh my, can I ask you a question, Joe, that I don't think I've ever asked you before?
Oh no.
Are you ready for this? All right. So, if humans are going to develop nuclear technology, we have nuclear missiles, we have nuclear silos. What makes you think that we would not develop the capability to disarm and disable those? Starting on ours and go into all of the other countries and our adversaries.
So you think it's us doing it? Is that you're suggesting that?
No, I'm asking you, what makes you think that we would develop this without developing a means to disable it?
I just think it's so far advanced what they're talking about, being able to disable it just by hovering over the missile site. I mean, I could maybe, yeah, they would think that maybe, I don't know if they were ever thinking of that at the time where we had to get missiles.
Why would we not? Like, why would you develop something without developing a countermeasure against it? Like, if you know that Russia has nuclear silos, why would you not develop a countermeasure to disable it?
That assumes, I mean, I guess if you could, you would. I just don't know if we have that technology that they're talking about.
Well, there's not been nuclear war since the 50s, so something's happened.
Well,
Why
that
would
just
we
may be
not
because
think that
nobody,
maybe we don't have the ability to do so?
maybe, or we just haven't, gotten into a nuclear war because people realize how devastating it would be to the planet, and it would be like war games. There's no winner. I don't know.
But do you discount the possibility that the things that are flying over our nuclear facilities is our own technology trying to test out our own ability to disable those?
Yeah, I don't think that's the case. Do I think it's possible? Anything's possible. I don't discount anything. I've also heard what's his name? Oh,
Robert Salas?
No, Ray Boucher talk about, he's a minister. I need to talk to him too. Talking about, he thinks that whatever this is demonic, and it's trying to pretend that it's extraterrestrial by hovering over our nuclear missile sites and then shutting them down because it's a perfect, like, oh, they care about our planet. Obviously, it's just a theory. I don't rule anything out, but that's not something I give high consideration.
Why not? So you think that we would develop this without a way to disarm it?
Yeah, I mean, we can't disarm lots of stuff. I mean,
like what?
Like, let me think. All right, I'll give you that one. I'm too tired. I must want to go.
I know, I'm tired too, hon. I'm just saying, like,
that's fine.
It's a damn good possibility, especially listening to Robert Salas. Okay. And I've done a lot of research and a lot of listening to Robert Salas and a lot of his testimony throughout the past couple of months. And it's a damn good possibility that we were trying to figure out a way to disarm our own nuclear missiles and nuclear facilities.
I'll give you an argument against that. Places like that in those areas have had the hitchhiker type effect around the whole area.
What area?
The area where the nuclear missiles were, and so the people who live in that area, I'm not sure if it's all military, but they're having related phenomena. They're having orbs. They're having, I don't know if it's hitchhiker effect, but poltergeist activity, which would tell me whatever's hovering over those nuclear sites is not human. So I don't think that.
Can you give me specific examples?
Yeah, not right now. I think it was Colin Keller who talked about that, and I'm not sure if he brought it up in my interview or another interview, but I will, where he talks about it. It's just, it's just an anecdote, obviously. But the same thing happened also in Hessdalen in Norway, because I was leaning towards natural with Hessdalen in Norway, and then I heard Keller was like, no, the scientists there are saying they're having the same type of related phenomena occurring in their home. So it's like happening to all of them too. And supposedly it happened in, I'm not sure which places related, in the northern tier. I need to get specifics with that. I'm not sure if it's in the book Skinwalkers or it was my interview, one of those, but it was interesting. I'd never heard that before.
I posted a very interesting thread on Oak Ridge and the Manhattan Project and everything that they did. And I also posted something about the UFOs that were, and those reports that were made by, I think it was the Air Force at the time. But it also just, it just makes me think that we would not develop any type of technology that we could not shut down. If you develop something, you better damn well be capable of cutting it off. And if we can cut our own technology off, of course, that's going to be the first step to be able to cut other adversaries' technology off. We would test it on ourselves. So there were orbs flying around, there were UFOs flying around all of our nuclear facilities, of course, because we're going to be the first guys that we tested on before we go to other countries and try to shut down their stuff. And as you know, we haven't had any issues in regards to nukes in a very long time. That may very well be because we have already developed systems to disable them.
Yeah, but like I said, if those stories are true, that theory goes out the window. I don't think we have technology that's creating
But
poltergeist
you
activity.
can't prove it. Neither can I. Like the poltergeist is like irrelevant at this point. I'm talking about strict technology in regards
not
to
irrelevant because
enabling and disabling nuclear
if there's
technology.
related phenomena and poltergeist activity in areas where we're having UFOs or whatever hovering above bases, that tells me that's not human technology. That's
Okay.
100% relevant if that's
All
the
right.
case.
I can counter that also. Go back and look at what's his name? I have so many of his books. Like he did so many things, not Kill, but Kehoe. So he wrote about this over and over. His books were actually pulled and they were banned for a period of time, to where he said that these balls of light that were hovering over our nuclear facilities were attributed to plasma. And I know that plasma, it's like a hot topic these days, especially since Morin brought it up.
Well,
And
it's
there's
a
a whole
hot topic
plasma
in
group.
that very small group. It's not a hot topic
Yeah.
in the UFO field.
Well, in my circle, it's a hot topic.
Yeah.
So plasma, it was these plasma is attributed to what has been hovering over certain nuclear facilities. And it's, going all the way back to Kehoe. So it's not a new thing. It's something that's been around for a very long time. What makes us think that we didn't develop this like back in the 50s?
Possible. I mean, anything's possible. I'm going to get to questions. I wanted to answer this question. If Lou allegedly knows who's in the saucer, so it was I think he's taking credit for it. It was Jeremy McGowan who was with Lou last year or the year before at his house in Wyoming, and he said that from Lou's lips to his mouth, he said, "We know who's in the saucers. We know who's in the triangles. We have no idea who's in the Tic Tacs." And there was something about, in the triangles, it's us and them. So if Lou allegedly knows who's in the saucers and probably got that information during ATIP, I don't know if he got it from ATIP. It might have been a black program. Somebody told him information. I don't know. How come Hal doesn't know it as well? Who said Hal doesn't know it? Just because Hal doesn't talk about it doesn't mean Hal doesn't know that. It's possible Hal has heard it and Hal doesn't believe it. I don't know. But just because, just left. Just because we have, if we know who's in the saucers, that doesn't mean we know what they are. It doesn't mean we know where they come from. And Lou has spoken about that before. So, Jess is back. Lewis spoken about that before, where it's really hard just if you have a body to determine what it is, where it's from, all of that stuff. So they may have analyzed bodies if we have bodies and still not know where they're from or where they originate from or where they hang out. So yeah.
Well, when Lou said that, I think everybody attributed that comment to the Turkish UFO sighting. And I don't think I've ever seen anything else attributed to what he said at that point in time. And the Turkish thing is kind of like still up in the air. It's never been debunked. I know a lot of people have said that it's been a ship, but there's absolutely no way in proving some of these historical sightings.
Yeah, this wasn't about Turkey. This was in a private conversation that he kind of denied, and then Sean Cahill denied and called it BS. And I'm like, well, when I heard it, I took it and I showed it to somebody who I trust, and they're like, we know who's in the saucers, and they said that is true. So for what it's worth, no proof, of course. What is this? I'm going to just do a couple more just because I'm tired. Experimental EMP generators have been suggested as the cause for those silo shutdowns. There you go. That's for you.
Yeah, a couple more. I'm tired also, Joe.
Many of those UFO and missile silo cases have no basis in reality. There's no doubt the silo went down temporarily, but there never was a UFO sighting present at the time.
Can I tell you what I thought about it? Like, look at Robert Salas. He parrots Richard Doty, especially in his recent interviews. And anybody especially Robert Salas, who is supposed to be like one of our main historical commentators on this, when he comes out later years and he's parroting Richard Doty, that kind of makes me a little bit skeptical on what he's saying and made me look into it a little bit more.
How exactly is he parroting Doty?
In bodies. I mean, I can send you an interview and I can send you certain clips, and we'll absolutely try to do that tomorrow. But
Okay.
he has said, hey, you know what? We had bodies out at aliens out at Area 51 that were shot and killed. Okay, who else has said that? Nobody else except for Richard Doty and George Knapp. So where did he get that from? Richard Doty and George Knapp. That makes me a little bit wary of his claims.
Well, if he's talking about, has he done that with his missile stuff, or you're just talking about just with the alien body stuff?
No, he said his whole missile claim, and then he come out afterwards and said this is basically our history. We have this. We have aliens that have been killed at this base or that base. Okay, somebody as read into and as high standing as Robert Salas, surely he would know what he was talking about, right?
And I need to see exactly what you're talking about. So
all right, I will. I promise you, I'll send it to you tomorrow, and you can post it.
Talking about marine and plasma. I don't know about plasma, so I really cannot say.
He brought up something recently that, ball lightning is attributed to plasma. Plasma is engraved in every part of the human aspect and factor, all the way from our bodies up into our atmosphere. So there's a possibility that plasma is a living microorganism. And this was brought up in a space that Joel did not long ago. Who's to say that a group of these living microorganisms doesn't come together and is able to basically mimic whatever that we're seeing and trick us? It's just one of those avenues that he was going down before he was shut up and kicked out of Twitter that I would like to.
He was shut up because he was deceptive, so that's why he was shut up, and he kicked himself out.
Damn it, Joe! At the end of the show, we're gonna go there.
You brought him up, but he self-evicted out of Twitter. He wasn't.
Yeah, but I brought up what he was doing and what he was talking about in his research.
Yeah, I just don't have time. Well, I don't want to go there now. It's too late. We'll be here another hour because I know people would love to go after that, and I can't. Not right now. Any other time, any other live stream, whatever they want, and you're back, we can talk about that. But I really don't want to.
Agreed. I'm exhausted. Let's go.
Yeah. Same guy saying the same thing. All right, I'm gonna end it. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here, Jessica, and for people watching. I mean, we had a nice crowd for Sunday night. We don't have any other competition for ratings, so it was good. I know some people didn't like that we interrupted, but I didn't want to read straight through. And if you have any other comments about paper, I mean, yeah, he's throwing everything at the kitchen sink here. My favorite thing is talking about how they live amongst us and they're just trying to protect themselves because we would damage them if we knew they were here. I like that theory the most, but I don't know. It could be so many different things.
I don't care if they were pissed off that we interrupted and actually broke the paper down with our thoughts, because that was the whole point of it.
I would
not
do that
just
anyway.
To read his face, and not just to read his paper to people. Like, they can go read it. Like, our whole point of this was to break it down, and that's what we did.
People were criticizing you for doing it, but if I was by myself, I would be doing the same thing. I'm not just going to read it and not comment. Otherwise, why even do that? I'm not a scribe, as somebody called me one time. Sometimes I'll read stuff, but I'll always jump in. So that's definitely not on you. And there's Ken. I know we've seen Ken before on. No, that's Matt.
Yeah, Ken's great.
Why do I not? Yeah, it's hard for me to keep track of everything, but yeah, it was good. It was a good first show. I want to do interviews. I definitely want to do the Paul Eno interview. Maybe you can join me for that. And I'm going to say good night. Good night to you. Good night to everybody else. Thanks for watching, guys.
Good night, Joe. It was great. Thank you for inviting me on.
Yeah, thanks for being there. I'll do it again.
All right. Bye.
Bye. All right, guys. Thanks again. Nice crowd. I was only going to go 2 hours, but we went 3 hours. I know people want to talk about the Morin thing. We can anytime, just not right now. when there's no paper. I could just do a no topic issue. I really don't want to. I mean, I've expressed my opinions on that on Twitter, so they're pretty clear, and I just said it now. I mean, I don't want to talk about it without Jess here. It's kind of not fair since we could have talked about it, but I'm tired. I'm sorry, but I'll do more. I'm doing more. I've been doing more. And I'm going to have Michael Vai on to talk about unconventional flying objects, which he said it's like a very important book. And the fact that Paul Hill was able to figure out where the UFOs would show up and go there, it was really interesting to me. And the guy was not, he was worked for NASA. I forget what his title is, but Michael's written an article on it, and then we'll just talk about that. And so have a good night. I will talk to you guys soon and see you on Twitter.